Cole.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery, Eagan. Then it's our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play, with Julie Millican, Vice President of Media Matters for America. We're going to talk about the right-wing fracturing around Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, and the FCC approving a massive merger between Skydance and Paramount. And yes, we'll get into South Park and Colbert too. It's all ahead on the 11 a.m. hour on BPR, on GPH and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is flying toward Scotland for a 4-day visit. He'll meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and stop at his 2 golf courses there. Before he left, Trump discussed his visit yesterday to the U.S. Federal Reserve and his meeting with Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
I think we had a very good meeting on interest rates. And he said to me, now I don't know if he's going to say this on Thursday or whenever he speaks, but he said to me very strongly, the country is doing well. He said, congratulations, the country is doing really well. And I got that to mean that I think he's going to start recommending lower rates.
But it's not clear at all that the Fed will lower rates. These have held steady. Powell and other Fed policymakers say they want to see the effect of Trump's tariffs and whether these increase prices for American consumers. President Trump has been praising Australia for its decision to relax restrictions on imports of American beef. But that decision is being questioned by an Australian beef industry group. Cattle Australia is calling for an independent review of the Australian government's decision to ease these restrictions. Christina Kukoya has more.
Cattle Australia says too much is at stake for Australia's beef industry, and the decision should be independently reviewed before imports begin. Australia has some of the world's toughest biosecurity rules that banned imports of beef raised in Canada and Mexico but processed in the US due to concerns over mad cow disease. The Trump administration called out Australia's beef ban when announcing trade tariffs in April. Trade Representative Jameson Greer now attributing its removal to President Trump's action to confront unfair trade practices. Australia's government denies the move is linked to trade talks with the US, saying it's the result of a decade-long scientific process. For NPR News, I'm Christina Kukoya in Melbourne, Australia.
3 Justice Department workers who were fired this month are now suing over their terminations. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports they allege violations of due process.
Joseph Terrell led the Justice Department's ethics office for years until he was fired without warning this month. Michael Gordon served as a federal prosecutor in D.C. and Florida with outstanding performance reviews until he was let go. Patty Hartman worked as a public affairs officer, writing press releases about cases involving the Capitol riot. Now all 3 are suing Attorney General Pam Bondi and the DOJ, alleging violations of the Administrative Procedure Act and simple due process. Their attorney, Abby Lowell, says they were terminated for political reasons, and the new case is about protecting the integrity of the legal system. The Justice Department did not give reasons for the firing, citing only the president's authority under the Constitution. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street, stocks are higher. The Dow Jones Industrials are up 115 points. The Nasdaq is up 41 points. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Unionized workers at Fenway Park and MGM Music Hall are less than an hour from going on strike at noon today. That's if a deal is not reached with their food service contractor. Around 1,000 workers with Unite Here Local 26 would walk off the job through Sunday during a 3-game series between the Red Sox and the Dodgers. If you are going to the park, you may not hear this weekend.
Hot dogs! Get your hot dogs! Hey, hot dogs! Who's got the beef? Who's hungry now? Hot dogs! Hey, hot dogs! Hey, hot dogs!
The workers are asking the company Aramark for higher pay, improved scheduling, and employment protections against automation. The 2 sides are not scheduled to meet today, meaning a deal before noon is unlikely. Aramark says it has contingency plans in place to protect the fan experience throughout the strike. And with the forecast calling for a hazy, hot and Henry day today with temperatures in the 90s, officials in Worcester have opened a number of cooling centers. They'll be stocked with free water, open to the public throughout the day. You can find a few of them. The main branch of the Worcester Public Library is one. The Worcester Senior Center, located at 128 Providence Street, is another. And a third is the Worcester 311 Customer Service Center. That's located at 799 Main Street. All three locations are accessible via the WRTA, which, of course, is fare free. And we do have Red Sox Dodgers tonight, 7:15. It's 88 degrees outside our studios in Brighton right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I am Jim Browdy. Margery Eagan has the day off. She'll be back on Monday. NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell is sitting in. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Good day, Mr. Browdy.
Nice to see you. We're live at the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH. If you're contemplating coming down to the library, a lot of good reasons. One, it's a really good show. Two, spectacular Celtic music from the band Solas at noon. We heard them this morning. And third, and most importantly, it's air conditioned. So if that's part of your thing, join us. But our Friday starts with you. The question, do the tax-paying Massachusetts residents deserve greater access to the Commonwealth's beaches? The answer, of course, is yes. It's not the first or the last time we've talked about this issue, but considering it's in the 90s today, we thought we'd revisit the debate around public beach access. There's a measure buried on an environmental bond bill from Governor Healy that would, in limited instances, redefine when a beach is considered public. We're not going to get into the details of that. But in this morning's Globe, an editorial makes the case that if taxpayers are expected to foot the bill for protecting or preserving the shore, particularly in the time of climate change, they should also be allowed to enjoy the beaches as much as the owner of, let's say, a wealthy beachside mansion. And by the way, I should say this proposal originated. Do you know where it originated? Right here. Thank you very much, Sue. When we have said repeatedly, if there's a city or town that has its coastline closed to people who don't live in that city or town, but they're using state taxpayer money to shore up their beaches, to protect it from climate change, we should have access. So we have a couple of questions at 877-301-8970 to call or text. Should the public be allowed to enjoy access to any part of the coastline where their tax dollars are being used? And secondly, and most importantly to me, does this issue upset you as much as it upsets me? Does it upset you?
Well, it does, because as you know, Jim, I grew up in the first public beach in America,
That's
Revere
right.
Beach, still completely accessible by the Blue Line. Used to be the cog rail would take you there. It was a great resort community in the early 1900s and an amusement and entertainment mecca during the early part of the last century, and then kind of decayed when I came along. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's essential. But just a couple of fact checks here, Jim. You can access these areas of these private beaches as long as you're in the water, right?
Correct.
So the law is you can fish, foul, or navigate, and you just can't walk on the beach, or you can't sunbathe on the beach, or sit on the beach like Chris Christie did that famous time during COVID, one of the great pictures of all time.
Let's explain this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Chris Burrell, our colleague here at GBH, has done wonderful reporting on this thing. First of all, you may or may not know only 12% of the beaches, coastline beaches in the state are available to the public, which is unbelievable. I'll do the math for you. 88%, almost 9 out of 10 miles of coastline are not available to you. The law in this state, which is weird, and unfortunately it's in the Constitution, as Sue was suggesting, says the private beach owner owns all the way to the low tide mark. The vast majority of states either have, like Hawaii and Oregon, all beaches are public, up and down, or the middle position, which most have, is they only owe to the high tide line, so you can do whatever you want on the rest of the beach. But because here at the low tide line, the only exceptions are go swimming out in the water, or as you say, navigate, foul, or fish, which is why a lot of people who have no intention of fishing carry a fishing pole with them when they're walking along the beach. That's not good enough for us. I love the idea that we've been advancing forever. Now the Globe Editorial Board is advancing as well. If there's state money contributed, whether it's to a private beach owner or a city or town, In return, that beach has got to be fully open to the public. What do you think? 877-301-8970.
I also appreciate when we have laws that were based when we were a colony or from Rome. I think those are all really very helpful, and we adapt them as we go through. Here we are saying this
is Rome in the ocean?
Rome, I think, has some water near
it.
So I think it's, they came up with a lot of laws.
It's got a fountain.
Whether they
it's
had
got
ocean
fountains.
or not,
we know
or
that.
not.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't, as you mentioned, just a problem in Massachusetts. One of my favorites, Janine Garofalo, once
pretty good.
did this in 1994. It stuck with me for so long. She decided on Michael Moore's TV Nation show to investigate the so-called beaches of Greenwich, Connecticut. She bought a busload of New Yorkers to enjoy a day at a beach. Let's take a listen.
Exactly.
We'd really like to go to the beach.
Okay,
We've driven all the way from New York because we've heard such good things.
We need to really see. Do you have a permit for the time?
Oh, I don't have a permit.
Yeah, you're gonna need a permit. We're gonna have to ask you to turn around like right now.
Excuse me, everyone. It seems as though we have to turn around right now.
Sure, we didn't have Greenwich resident permits. We had something better. We had no choice but to go the rest of the way on our own. In dinghies.
If you like the lovely beach, why don't you buy some property in Greenwich, pay taxes, and come here and enjoy it?
I never heard that before.
It's
That
great.
is
and
fabulous.
they attack the beach from dinghies onto the shore. So that might be an effort that we could take right here.
Can you explain? We'll get to the calls in a second. 877-301-8970. Why are people not more upset about this? The vast majority of us do not own property on the coastline. And unless you do, we have Katie Theoharides here quite regularly, the head of the trustees of reservation.
Right.
Now you don't have to wait in line for 4 hours to get into one of their beaches. You can online reserve a parking spot at a specific time. That's fabulous. But again, only 12% of our coastline, 12% is available to real people. And I don't think the vast majority of us care as much as Janine Garofalo and me.
Right. I mean, I care, and a lot of people care. I don't care in the sense of I don't go to a lot of beaches. I have a very narrow list of beaches.
Well, because you can't go to any beaches.
No, but even if I did, there's a few number of beaches. What I do care about,
what is that?
My tax dollars.
Yeah.
My tax dollars going to protect property that I don't have access to, which I should, because it's, the water is ours, some of the shore is ours, and we can use it for certain issues. But I do think that it should be accessible to all. And you don't notice sometimes unless you're taking a walk on the beach somewhere and suddenly you see a sign and you think, oh my gosh, can I be here? Can I not be here?
So the exceptions that were mentioned, you're from Revere, you said?
I am indeed,
So obviously
originally.
you grew up fouling, I assume, when you were a kid?
Yes, fouling at Anna's Pizza and Bianchi's Pizza and Kelly's Roast Beef.
Sure
That's where we caught all of our fish to eat.
So
right there.
fouling is apparently the solution. In the interim, let's talk to you. Lisa in Medford, you're on BPR with Sue O'Connell and me, Jim Browdy. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jim. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Happy Sweltering Friday.
Thank you. We love that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Connecticut, and one of the things that they do there is recently they raised taxes ever so slightly, which I know is a no-no here and just about everywhere. But anybody in Connecticut has access, as long as you drive in, if you're in a car, of course, as long as you drive in with a Connecticut license plate, you don't have to pay for the beach. There's several nice beaches and towns across Connecticut, and I think that that's something that, we're already paying taxes. We should have access to this, and especially with global warming and people not having, we're in a city, we can't have pools everywhere. We should have more than we do, but I just think that there are ways to do this to offset the maintenance and upkeep and allow people more access.
Well, let me tell you what the problem we have here, Lisa. I don't know I hear what you say about Connecticut. Problem we have in Massachusetts is this right of private property owners to own at the low tide mark is in the Constitution. And so the only way around it is sort of creative thinking like we have done here on the show, I like to think, and the Globe editorial does today. They're basically saying you have a constitutional right to that property, but if you want taxpayer money to shore up your shoreline, Mr. or Ms. Property owner, Well, if you agree to take that money, you got to provide public access. If you don't want public access, then good luck to you. Let your house be in the ocean next. So you got to think creatively here because our laws are so, as you say, based on the Roman Empire. Lisa, thanks for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
We have a texter who writes, please talk about towns that have lakes and ponds too. Most of them don't allow non-residents, even if we're willing to pay more. Call me swim deprived in Western Mass.
Why can't the same rules apply?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to go look at my Roman history book right now to find out why. No, but it is.
I don't mean the same rules apply in terms of the prohibitions. Why can't the same rules as the Globe and we have proposed apply? That if there's any taxpayer money to make sure there's not erosion on that pond or lake beach, that you got to let us in. No?
Yeah, it should. No, I agree. I mean, I think that I think a solution would have been to better define a property line, so that the property that is privately owned is separate from the area that is publicly owned, and that would be shorelines, not just counting the tides, I know, which is some of the laws, as you mentioned, in many of the states, but the access to it as well. And I get, I totally understand. I would love to have enough money to buy a beachfront property and have a beach that I can have and not have to worry about anybody, of any kind of people anywhere.
Then you keep them out too.
Right.
Exactly.
But I understand that we're on a planet here together with a shoreline that we all share.
How do you know so much about Roman law, by the way? It's pretty impressive, your knowledge.
Well, Jim, I'm a know-it-all, and it's really various. My brother is so fond of saying, I finally got a job to get paid to be a know-it-all.
That's
so,
great.
Yeah, things come in and they don't come out. That's how I remember there was a Janine Garofalo thing from 1994.
No, I would have remembered that had I heard it, too. Peter in Lexington, you're on with Sue and me. Hi.
How do you know so much about Roman law?
Hi,
hey, Peter.
I hate to interrupt your discussion. Oh, that's us, actually.
Yes.
You got to turn your radio down, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
This is going well so far.
Yeah, so far we're doing
Peter.
great.
Hey.
No, Peter's busy.
Okay, Peter, we're going to put you on
up.
hold. We'll get back to you in a minute. We're not hanging up on you, but you got to turn the radio. Oh, he hung up on us. You got to turn the radio down.
Couple of texts. Is fouling a different thing in P-Town? Yes, it is indeed. I can attest to that. And in Revere, I think it's more like gulling, which is also true because, those seagulls with your Kelly's roast beef, they're not messing around.
How are the beaches in? Oh, by the way, is the sand castling?
Yes, that's this weekend.
Is that this weekend? I think it is. Yeah.
Yes, another great event.
You're going to that?
Revere Beach. I will not be. I'll be up in Maine.
No, have you ever gone to that? Have you ever?
Yes, I have.
And it's fabulous. I'm told.
It's amazing. It's you learn
sand sculptures.
Yes, and you learn a lot about the type of sand that you need to do in order to create these.
So it doesn't fall apart.
Yes.
What type of sand?
I have no idea, but the sand that I remember one year in Revere, they trucked in a bunch of sand for the shore. This is like in the 70s, and we were all very unhappy about the quality of the sand in Revere. So there you go.
Bernice in Bridgewater, you're on with Sue and me. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for hearing me.
Sure.
This is my topic. I will tell you that. But the fish fowl would navigate on public access to ponds in Massachusetts is based on if it's a great pond. The great ponds in Massachusetts, most of them have a public access boat ramp, and that gives the public access. And I live on one of those lakes, Lake Nipponicket in Bridgewater, and it's 400 acres, and the public access issue is the bane of my existence. I have to do the policing. I respect the public's access, especially in hot days like this, but it's free and open to everyone in the state or out of the state. And so
you think there's too much you think there's too much public access?
Well, I love that everyone can have a place to go to.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people live in the cities, they have no, so I want that for them.
What if we just,
Bernice, not enough.
What if we just screw the out-of-staters and all the in-staters can go to the beach there? How about that as a compromise?
I'm okay with that, but I will tell you, I belong to a mailing list for New Hampshire.
Yeah.
They do lakes well. They really cherish their lakes. We don't have enough funding in the departments that police the lakes. For example, the Mass Environmental Police. Mm-hmm. They know who I am because I call.
Bet they do.
I've been involved in this for 30 years.
Yeah, I can tell.
And I always call to say, I'm reporting a violation of the boating laws, not calling to complain. And they say, well, we don't have anyone to send out there because their staffing has been cut in half.
Got it.
And
now
they
let me
still
ask you
have
something, Bernice.
so
Okay,
much.
good. Now, Bernice, let me ask something. How familiar are you with the Roman law on the subject? Do you have any personal knowledge
Very
of it?
familiar. Very
I
familiar.
knew you were.
It's called. They refer to the colonial law.
Colonial.
And it's to fish, fowl, and navigate, as I heard earlier.
Yeah.
And the fish is great. Like, we have fishermen come from all around.
Sure.
They're wonderful. They respect the lake.
Okay.
But we also have personal watercrafts, and they do not respect the boating laws. They chase the geese off the lake by running across them. And this, I have a problem with this. I'm trying to protect the lake.
It's pretty. No, we can tell. Yeah. Okay. Well, Bernice, we're really glad to have met you over this issue, and we wish you luck. And think about my compromise. No out-of-staters, but in-staters, as long as they're respectful,
Yep,
they
they're
can
outta
do whatever
here.
the hell they want.
Thanks,
Okay.
Bernice. You know, the challenges of enforcement and all that do come into this, but again, that's your taxpayer money and what you're hoping that you do. The lakes and towns are also a little different because of the jurisdiction of where they land, unlike some of the public beaches. So, that's the challenge. We are confirmed the Revere Beach International Sand Sculpting Festival is this weekend. Revolution Start is the theme,
that's
and
great.
because it's our 250th anniversary, which is when we wrote this law regarding the fish, fowl, or fly. What is it? Fish, fowl, or wade?
Navigate.
Fish, fowl, or navigate.
I don't know what that means either. So is this New York Times thing real or is this made up? Listen to this. According to the New York Times, the headline, you never know with our colleagues if they're making stuff up. This apparently
For a
is true.
joke.
The headline is an ancient law could shape the modern future of
See?
America's beaches. You are a genius.
I'm a genius.
Listen, why
Clip
don't
that.
you
Would
read
you
the
clip
damn
that,
thing?
please?
Read
Yes.
it if it turns out.
At issue is a legal concept from the 6th century AD when Emperor Justinian ordered the codification of Roman laws.
I remember.
The
Yep.
resulting code declared that features of nature like the air, running water, the sea, and the shores of the sea must be held in trust for the use of the public. That idea has been passed into English common law and then to the United
So
States.
why isn't it passed on to Massachusetts?
Because we got here and decided we didn't want to do anything they were doing in
Well, that's
Europe
quite true.
250 years ago and made our own constitution, which has made a challenge, as you said. I mean, this is the part which I never really understood until the marriage equality battles back, in the last century. It's in the Constitution what makes it harder to change. It's not just a law that we pass. So that's our challenge here.
You know, every time we discuss this, which Margery and I do quite regularly during the summers, I think it bears, in light of the fact that we often criticize former Senate President Bill Bulger, a brother of James Whitey Bulger, as we know, for a variety of things. One of the things he was fabulous on was public access to beaches. And the problem, as I say, is to change the Constitution, you got to go through a multi-year, endless process,
convention.
or figure out something clever like we did and like the Globe Editorial Board did, which basically says, we say, you take our money, you grant access to the people who provided the money, who are the taxpayers. By the way, you're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Mike in Sudbury, join us.
Hi.
Hi.
I think there's also a law about swimming at unguarded beaches.
What is it?
That bans it's a $500 fine if you swim at a beach that doesn't have a lifeguard, if I remember correctly, and that applies to ponds generally.
No.
Fact check me on that.
We're gonna
But
fact
I
check.
remember it coming out during COVID.
Are you like a
And,
chatbot or are you a human? Wait, where did you get that? Where did you hear that?
I was stopped.
Oh,
we're losing
Mike,
it.
we were totally into this.
Mike, we're going to find out about that.
Mike, we have a horrible connection. We're not cutting you off.
Yeah,
we'll check that out. Can you guys check that out?
There are some crazy
Thank you.
laws
Thank
out
you, Mike.
there about certain things, but
There are?
It was a pandemic. We're being told by Zoe it was a pandemic era thing because they didn't have a lot of lifeguards out working.
So why should you get penalized if you swim at your own risk? Put up a sign.
I know, Jim.
So Rick from Sudbury or Mike from Sudbury knew what he was talking about.
But it's not now. It's not in place now. We're actually seeing a great picture of Emperor Justinian here that our colleagues are sharing with us. I'm not sure what he looks like, but
here it is.
Yep.
The bill was proposed. Apparently, Mike in Sudbury was proposed by Charlie Baker. The bill would boost the maximum fine to $500 for entering or swimming in any waters or so and so. Not designated for swimming. It's not
that's
lifeguard.
different, yeah.
Legislation is intended to provide an appropriate penalty for. Well, it's not passing.
But you know
so
what
we
they
don't
could
care.
do there too, though. They
What
could
can they do?
designate places not for swimming.
Oh, that's so
and
clever.
therefore
That's
you
devious.
can say that's how it would work.
That's
Like, I've got
devious.
our lakefront property and it's not designated for swimming except for our family.
We're looking for a couple of kinds of people to call in addition to any of you are calling. One, anybody who has carried a fake fishing pole or a real fishing pole, even though they had no intention of fishing. And two, if anybody is going fouling, and if you've done that on private beach land, and if you've gotten away with that. You know what we haven't gotten today? We've heard, well, Margery and I have done this in the past, some stories about property owners who have chased or threatened people on their beach who are literally just walking across the damn sand to be close to the water. I mean, is there something wrong with that? Isn't that like...
Well, I mean,
horrible?
it's the same type of person who yells if you park in front of their house in a public parking space. I think it's a mindset.
Well, that I have done.
I do have a.
I have. I mean, it's my space.
A texter reminds me, thank you, Sue should be quite familiar with the demarcation line at the north end of Revere Beach.
What's that?
Where the free beach turns into the Pines Beach, the Point of Pines, and there are lots of signs there threatening any non-Pines residents from entering their beach. I always thought Point of Pines was like the fanciest area of Revere, except my aunt lived there, so I got to use the Point of Pines private beach.
That's great.
So I didn't complain about it.
So this is really not that kind, but an anonymous texter is responding to that woman who has basically spent her life protecting that pond. An anonymous texter says, I'm not sure many people are coming from out of state to swim in Bridgewater.
Well, they're
now that
they're
is
hot.
really
That's mean.
That
That's
is
just
really, really mean.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to take some more of your calls and
are.
texts. He's Jim Browdy. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell in for Margery. You are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM on live from the BPL and streaming on YouTube.com. GBH News. We'll be right back.
In the 1980s, South African bass player Bakiti Khumalo had global aspirations.
I'm a sideman and I'm a bass player, and I want to go distance. I don't want to just be a South African bass player. And Paul came through.
Paul, as in Paul Simon, playing on the album Graceland, made Khumalo's dream a reality. Hear that conversation next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And 30 Tigers, presenting Crown of Roses, the new album from Patty Griffin. Available now on all music streaming services and at local record stores.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 is sitting in for Margery. Margery will be back on Monday. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Fabulous, fabulous live music at noon from the Celtic band Solas. Congressman Jake Auchincloss with Jon Gruber from MIT who are going to join us at 1 o'clock to talk about a solution for housing, they say. If you're just joining us, we're debating the issue of public access or virtually no public access to Massachusetts beaches on this hot summer Friday. 877-301-8970. By the way, we are problem solvers in a very limited way. Our staff, our crack staff, as Marty would call them, or her crack staff, as she would call them, if you want unlimited beach access, it will only cost you $10.98. Can we put that up, please? If you go to Amazon, where we allegedly don't buy anything anymore, for $10.98, you can get a fishing pole, which is a pretty good bargain for $10.98. And as long as you carry it and pretend you're about to fish, you may walk across a private homeowner's beach, even above the low tide line. So there you go.
I catch fish with my hands.
You do?
So that's what I would say if I was walking along the beach. I would just say, I'm ready to go. I'm going to dive in and catch one, and call the police if you want. Let's go to John in the car. John,
hey, John.
Welcome. What's
Hi.
on your mind?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
To you, too.
So I believe every public body of water needs to be free and open to the public. I grew up fishing in Mass, and the best fishing spots are those that are private or so-called private. If there wasn't, we would ask folks if there was a house near there if we could fish, and if they said no, we'll just walk around the pond a little bit, look for an opening or make an opening, and just go in there and fish. We wouldn't be in front of their property. We'd be across them or to the side or somewhere. But I don't think it's right that someone, because they own a small little piece of the property, that pond automatically becomes private when that pond's been there since the creation of this earth. You know what I mean? So it's like,
You are perfect. This is the call I've been waiting for. That's the underlying principle, John, and it's brilliantly expressed. And I love the fact that you just do what you do.
Thank
John,
you
thanks
so much,
for the call.
John. So listen, we have
Love
RFK Jr., right?
What do
he
he
is
do?
solving all kinds of problems
He
for
is.
us, even
He
problems
is.
that aren't problems and creating problems. But as one texter points out, RFK Jr. Wants to know if there are any rules about drainage ditches. You might recall a few months ago there was a picture that RFK Jr. Posted of him swimming in a ditch with his grandchildren.
No.
It turned out to be a ditch that the EPA had closed and had warned.
I didn't know this.
Yes, it had been closed for years in the Washington, D.C. area,
Great.
I believe, that it was filled with bacteria and not to swim in it. So I think ditches could be opened up under RFK Jr.
I like it.
I feel healthy already.
Yeah, I like that a lot. John in the car, hi.
Hi. I lived in the Vineyard in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
And I used to go to South Beach up Island and loved it, and it was public. And then when you walk, Catherine Graham and Robert McNamara owned estates there, and they had armed guards.
No, they did not.
Invariably,
No. Armed guards?
Yes, they did. Yes. They did. I don't know if it was a gun or a taser. I don't know what it was, but they were imposing. And invariably, when I was walking the beach, I would find some old fishing tackle, lines, anything. I'd pick it up.
Good for
and
you.
I would just hold it up, and they never stopped me. They never gave me a problem.
John, you're our
I don't know
hero.
if that's true.
We love you for that. Thank you. We got to go. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Catherine Graham, the former owner of the legendary owner of the Washington Post, Robert McNamara. I mean, it's not a big surprise.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, you don't want people coming up on your deck and asking for champagne and stuff. I mean, that's when you walk along the beaches in the Bay Area beach in Provincetown, you never know what you're going to stumble upon too. So
I've never been. You ever been? Oh, I'm sure that's true. But have you ever been stopped? No.
No, I've never been stopped. No one's going to stop you. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So, Margery, if you were appropriately filling Margery's position,
what would you do right
What
now?
she would say at this point is, Jim, if you own property on the coastline, would you let people just hang out? And the answer is, of course. Of course.
Well, we've already established you don't want people parking on the public street in front of your house.
By the way, in all seriousness, I understand. I totally intellectual. Let me just say, I know that it's public parking, but you tell me if you live right there and somebody, you know what it's like? It's like when you have a seat in the front of the plane.
Yeah.
And someone has a seat in the back of the plane, and on their way to the back of the plane, they put their bag over your seat, so that you have to put your bag further back than your seat is, which means you can't even get to it when the plane lands. It's the exact same kind of thing.
I see how you and my daughter, Ruby, get along so well.
Well, I love your kid.
I know.
I do love
the
your
two
kid.
of you are two peas in a pod. Ruby has a handicap placard for our car because she's got disabilities. In our building is a person who also has a handicap placard. We live in the city of Boston.
He's not parking in that spot.
There is the handicap spot right in front of the building. And Ruby refers to that as her spot, even though it predates her, and there's plenty of parking. So on a regular basis, I say, we're not going to park there because that's where he parks. And she's like, it's not his spot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe she should summer with you.
I like her style.
Yeah.
First of all, the fact that a kid from Revere uses the word summer as a verb is appalling. It is appalling.
You know when I first heard
Anybody use the word summer as a verb in this audience? Be honest. Nobody, not one person.
I'll tell you my first year at Emerson College, I don't know what I thought rich people did.
Yeah.
I think I thought I was rich. I don't know. And then someone told me they were summering. And we didn't have the Google machine. We didn't have any of these things. I just kept walking around going, what does summers and summering mean? Now I use it all the time. I've taken it back.
Okay, Jeffrey in Halifax, you literally have 30 seconds max. Take it away.
Okay, I live across the street from a pond.
Yep.
Across a busy street.
Yeah.
And there's a state boat ramp right there, and I'm on the other pond. And a whole horde of jet skis have found it and frequent this place on the weekends. And the problem is not the jet skis, they're just utterly disrespectful.
Well, by the way, can I just say, because we're out of time, you can provide public access and ban jet skis, which I'm fine with. The noise destroys the whole gestalt of the experience.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, thanks for your call.
Thanks for all your calls. We're out of time. Coming up after this quick break, our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play, with Julie Millican of Media Matters for America. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Chevalier Theatre. Hidden Brain host and executive editor Shankar Vedantam is bringing 7 perceptions from the first decade of the podcast to the stage on August 2nd at the Chevalier Theatre. More at chevaliertheatre.com. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org.
For decades, gamblers who won more than they lost only had to pay taxes on their profits. A provision in President Trump's big bill would reverse that.
You're taxing people who lose money, like you're taxing zero income. Like, we don't mind paying taxes, but like on actual money.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. We'll talk the high stakes of the bill on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. I'm Jim Browdy. Margery has the day off. She's back Monday. NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell is sitting in. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. It's time for our Friday media analysis segment, Press Play. Joining us now via Zoom is Julie Millican. Julie's the Vice President at Media Matters for America, a fabulous operation available at MediaMatters.org. Julie, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Julie. How's it going?
I think you're muted.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute. Hello.
There you go.
There you go. Welcome,
Perfect.
Julie. Great
Good
to
job.
see you.
I think that could be the theme of the next year. We're trying to unmute. I think we're going to go with that.
Can you trying to figure out technology these days?
There you go. Let's talk a little bit about this Skydance Paramount merger. You know, I think a lot of people just generally don't think about how everything is intertwined. And obviously, we're talking about a lot of things around the merger, and we're going to get to that in a bit. But can you just explain who Skydance is and why folks should generally care about this merger?
So Skydance is basically a company now that is owned by, or is about to be owned by, David Ellison, who has taken over. They have been trying to merge with Paramount. Paramount now owns CBS. And this merger has been held up for a while and has been really under scrutiny, a lot of scrutiny because of the Trump administration having this lawsuit, this really kind of frivolous lawsuit back from the campaign over some 60 Minutes interview that they did with Kamala Harris. Trump campaign took issue with just some of the ways that they had edited and promoted the interview. and filed this largely what had been described as a completely frivolous lawsuit for $10 billion, alleging that this was some sort of campaign interference, because they said that they had edited this interview in a favorable light, and they had been, suing CBS over this, and Paramount really, really wanted this merger to be able to go through with Skydance. And once Trump won the election, the FCC kind of made it pretty clear that there was going to be some scrutiny over this deal in a way that was going to be unfavorable to them, potentially, if things didn't go a particular way. So they started to look at this more from a business perspective. And there was a lot of talk basically over the objections of all of their journalists, over 60 Minutes, over their news division, over everything around going into settlements with the Trump campaign over this lawsuit in order to, from what a lot of people have speculated, in order to get this business deal approved. There were also a lot of other capitulations that were made in recent days. Skydance put, some filings together with the FCC saying that they were going to do things like make sure that they were going to put somebody in place to correct for ideological imbalance at CBS, assuring the FCC that they were going to basically have a hand in the editorial control over CBS, which is really pretty unprecedented interference with the independence of the newsroom. And they also fired Stephen Colbert. And, ended The Late Show. And Stephen Colbert was a very notable critic of President Trump. And they settled this lawsuit with the Trump campaign for $16 million. And then reportedly, there may also be a side deal for tens of millions of dollars, maybe upwards of $20 million for some public service announcements that they would be able to give Trump to run for conservative causes, presumably, for free on their airways. All of this happened in the backdrop of then the FCC magically approving this merger last night.
So, can I interrupt you for a second? Our Senator Elizabeth Warren, among others, but most notably, called the $16 million payment a bribe. And I don't know if she used the word bribe, but she inferred, and maybe she was explicit, that the Colbert firing was also part of a bribe. I find that to be a totally appropriate description of what CBS and Sherry Redstone did to make sure they got their money and the deal went through. Do you think that characterization is fair?
There's certainly a lot of people who think that might be the case, and there's some state investigations, who are looking into that, and also potential shareholder, investigations into this as well. So I think that there's a lot of smoke. I couldn't say one way or the other, but there's a lot of things lining up to look like this is it could be a bribe. I mean, there's certainly the Trump people are declaring total victory on it. They're pretty explicit about that they got exactly what they wanted out of it. They aren't holding back to declare victory that this is exactly what they wanted. I mean, they're not really being subtle. in any case, they celebrated Colbert's firing. They celebrated the settlement. They are bragging about getting these PSAs. They're bragging about getting the controls over the editorial direction of CBS and saying we're correcting for this liberal balance. They're the DEI measures that they got. So they got this promise that they were going to eliminate DEI at CBS as well. So any sort of DEI initiatives that were at the network and at Paramount, et cetera. All of these things they're looking at as victories. These are concessions. So it seems like yes, it could be a fair description to say that this money, these concessions that they're making, this was all in service of getting a government approval for a deal, and it was all in service of getting a very specific, things that the Trump administration and Trump himself wanted. So, calling it a bribe, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are doing it, and it does seem like there's some smoke there. So,
one of the things I have to say I've not understood about this is for people in the media who hopefully take a broad view of things, you don't just look at the CBS capitulation in isolation. Mm-hmm. You don't look at the ABC capitulation around Stephanopoulos' use of a term rape as opposed to, which is what it was under at least our law, sexual abuse in the Eugene Carroll case, the LA Times, the Washington Post killing editorials, obviously defunding of public media where there was not capitulation but a fight, the lawsuit, billions of dollars against the Wall Street Journal for reporting about Trump and Epstein. Why are better paid journalists at these operations not just leaving their posts to make a statement to the American people? I'm not talking about the rank and file producer who's making a living wage, but the high-end people who are making a ton of dough. If they see what is going on in this, as a lot of people have written this week, in this Orban-like, the head of Hungary, domination, destruction of the media by Donald Trump, why aren't they doing something other than writing a letter or, in the case of some few people, having the courage to go on the air and making a statement? Why isn't there more reaction?
That's a great question. I think there have been people, in fairness, that have taken a stand. Yeah, especially at CBS, like 60 Minutes, they have been very vocal, and there have been people, the longtime 60 Minutes producer did leave under editorial pressure, and that was he had been there for decades. And that was a big vocal, statement. And there is, but there should be more. Jon Stewart has made a lot of noise around Stephen Colbert. I think there is, kind of a push-pull here. I think people who have a microphone should use it. So even if they're staying in their position, they should be taking advantage of the fact that they have this megaphone to draw attention to what's going on for as long as they have that megaphone. And I do think that we're not seeing as much of it. Like they are, kind of cowering in fear. Maybe it's fear of losing access. Maybe it's fear of losing that megaphone. And they care more about that than they do about,
losing half a megaphone, is what they really have. Yeah.
Well, somebody who does have a megaphone are the folks over at South Park.
This is great.
Who
also are under Paramount's umbrella.
$1.5 B with $1 billion deal with Paramount. Yep. The merger went through, and this is the scene that just aired from the new South Park episode that shows Donald Trump in bed with Satan. Take a listen.
Hey, Satan. I'm not in the mood right now. Another random commented on my Instagram that you're on the Epstein list.
The Epstein list? Are we still talking about that?
Well, are you on the list or not? It's weird that whenever it comes up, you just tell everyone to relax.
I'm not telling everyone to relax. Relax, yeah?
And of course, Julie, the creator, kind of apologized afterwards, but
not really.
This is kind of a big problem, a multi-billion-dollar problem for Paramount and Skydance, do you think?
They certainly probably don't appreciate it, but it's the South Park people, and I appreciate them for, not caring and sticking it to them anyway. It is interesting. I would be, really curious to see how they respond to that. Because again, one of the things that we've seen time and time again is that when these corporations, when these law firms, when these universities, whenever the capitulation has happened to the Trump administration, it's not like it just ends and goes away. Like they don't just say, okay, we're done here and then move on. They just come back for more, right? So ABC, for instance, you had the ABC Disney settlement. Well, right now, Trump is already, he's going after Jimmy Kimmel. He's already saying that he wants Jimmy Kimmel's show shut down. And they're going after The View. And the FCC chairman is going after The View as well. And he's saying hey, they're on our radar now too. So they're still going after them to say there are critics on here whose commentary we don't like, and we're still going to come after you. It's the same thing with the law firms that capitulated communicated to them. Like, not only did they change their policies, then they went after them and said, hey, we need pro bono work from you guys as well. It's the same thing with Columbia University. How many different times now have they gone to them and changed their policies and given them money and had to go back and give them more money? You know, they just keep coming back for more and more and more. So if Paramount thinks that they're done now because they got their deal through, and Skydance thinks that they're done now because they got their deal through, they're not. They're sadly mistaken. They're going to keep coming back for more. And so I think that that is a lesson that people need to learn here, is that they're going to have to stand up for this stuff and stand up for their values here and be able to, otherwise they're just going to keep being under the thumb of this administration. They're never going to be able to get out from underneath this until they start standing up. And the people who stand up are the ones that are going to get out ahead.
We're talking to Julie Millican, who's the Vice President of Media Matters for America. One last thought before we leave here. A couple of texters. Here's one. Same thing. Anonymous texter. The Colbert Show is losing $40 million a year. I know math is not your strong suit, Jim. Well, I guess my response is whatever they were losing a month ago and 3 months ago, and Colbert wasn't fired. But lo and behold, right before the FCC is to vote, he is fired. So why don't you respond to that text? Again, we're talking to Julie Millican. One of my favorite things about the Epstein deal, I have to say, and your operation helped this enjoyment along. The Wall Street Journal is doing brilliant reporting exposing Trump and his Epstein connections. That's owned by Rupert Murdoch. Fox News is also owned by Rupert Murdoch. Fox News loves to join Trump in trashing mainstream media criticism of Donald Trump. But obviously they're in a tough spot. And as you guys reported last week, I think it was, they mentioned Obama's name 3 times more than Epstein's name. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So what happened was, you're right. Like, this is actually a weird, as somebody who's worked at Media Matters for a long time, it's kind of a weird place to be in. I never really thought that, I'd be in a place where, one of Rupert Murdoch's, media outlets would be doing some of, the toughest, hardest hitting, reporting on Donald Trump. So, but here we are.
Wall Street Journal, I have to say, Wall Street Journal, its news pages are really strong and good, I would say. But go ahead.
They have, even their editorial board has been pretty tough.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
But even still, so what happened was one of the various different ways that Trump has tried to deflect from the Epstein story, because he desperately wants to change the narrative and get back control over the narrative. He does not want people talking about this story anymore, is that they've been trying to, get back to some of their greatest hits. And he knows that one of the biggest red meat for his base is going after Obama. They just would love to go after Obama. And so they had Tulsi Gabbard come out and they, threw out some, false accusations, essentially accusing Obama of treason by misrepresenting, intelligence reports from 2016 around Russian interference in the elections. And so what happened was Fox, being Fox, they've gone along with this the entire time. Trump says move on from Epstein. They've moved on from Epstein. So when Tulsi Gabbard came out with this assessment, Fox followed suit, and they mentioned this was on Friday, last Friday. So in the 5.5 days following this announcement, they mentioned Obama more than 3 times more than Epstein. And not just to say that this was out of step, Fox was out of step with just other cable networks. They were even out of step for other right-wing cable networks. So they even compared to Newsmax, they were mentioning Epstein significantly less. So they mentioned Epstein maybe 135 times over that course of the 5.5 days, whereas Newsmax mentioned them over 700 times. So just to give you a sense of just how much Fox is following Trump's lead and doing Trump's bidding. So that does make it a really interesting dynamic here that, Trump is out there then trying to sue Rupert Murdoch. And the other thing that I think is really interesting about it is that Lachlan Murdoch is actually the executive director of News Corp. So he is actually the one who is in charge of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's in charge of both. He's in charge of Fox News and he's in charge of the Wall Street Journal. But he's not the one getting sued. His dad is. And I think that is an actual interesting little dynamic.
Well, how do you explain? Well, that is interesting. How do you explain? Yeah. What do you reflect on that? How do you?
Well, I mean, Lachlan is the one who's widely credited for taking Fox in the extreme rightward shift that it has gone over the last 10 years. And, you know, I think that he is the one who has set more of that editorial direction and has just like said, hey, guardrails off, like, let's go. You know, Rupert's extremely conservative, don't get me wrong. But Trump has always had like a little bit more of the like, you know, I'm going to have the rivalry with Rupert when that rivalry exists, and has kind of left Lachlan alone on that. And I think that is like an interesting, like, he went to Rupert to try to get Rupert to kill the story. Rupert didn't kill the story, and that's the one who's getting sued.
We're talking to Julie Millican. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM.
Julie, one of the other kind of behind the scenes that folks may have forgotten is we learned in the Dominion voter systems defamation lawsuit that although some of the people on Fox were saying things very favorable about Donald Trump, behind the scenes and in their text messages, they were saying exactly the opposite of that. That didn't actually ever, I think, really connect with the Fox viewers. But I'm finding it fascinating. I work at NBC 10 Boston. We have television screens all around this huge office space that we have, and I continually look up at Fox, and it's like, what country are they in? What are they reporting? You know, is Barack Obama president again? What's Joe Biden doing now? You know, it is an interesting slant. And I'm wondering, we've also seen some layoffs here in the Boston market, as folks have in other parts of the country. We've are seeing layoffs over at WBZ as well.
Owned by CBS.
Owned by CBS. Are you seeing any trickle down or just reset of things based on how the marketplaces are reacting? Is this a tightening in response, do you think, to some concerns about the future economics of the country? And what are you hearing from people when you talk to them?
Well, so I think there are concerns. I mean, the way that people are consuming information has been shifting, right? Especially when you're looking at like younger demographics. You know, Gen Z millennials are increasingly getting their information online. They are much more likely to be getting their information from social media than older generations. When you're looking at Gen X and the boomer generations, they're more likely to consume the traditional media. And so as that demographic shifts happen, you're running into this issue of like, you know, some of the more traditional media markets, you know, cable news, broadcast news, even like traditional papers, all of those above, like that old model is like really at a crossroads right now. And it is arguably like that's a real thing. You know, it's just trying to figure out how to kind of navigate this really shifting landscape, because when you look at what's happening on social media, it's just almost like the wild, wild west out there, right? Like people are getting their information from influencers. They're getting their information from podcasters. They're not necessarily tied to like corporate entities. They're independent. They have like a completely different funding structure. They're also getting fed information from like more of an algorithmic based model. So they're in these information bubbles and information silos that make it a lot more difficult to pierce through and penetrate. And they're not actively consuming the news. They're kind of bumping into it from the side. So say we did a study recently this year. We spent the first 6 months of the year looking at this like podcast landscape. And we were really interested in trying to see kind of just like what was happening there and who was engaging in political content and who wasn't. And we found like this subset of like the top podcasts that in our study.
We have 20 seconds, Julie, by the way. I'm sorry to be rude. Go ahead.
That's totally fine. But I was going to say that there was a subset of this where there was a huge portion of these podcasters that were saying that they were identified as non-political, that were engaging in political content. And what was interesting about that is that means a lot of people are out there listening to sports, comedy, fashion that aren't trying to engage in political content, but they're getting it through that type of content.
All right. Thank you, Julie Millican. Hate to cut you off. Talk with you
Great
again
to talk
soon.
to you, Julie. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Great meeting you guys.
All right, great. Up after the noon news on 89.7 GBH, it's Live Music Friday. GBH Callie Crossley is going to join us. Jake Auchincloss, the congressman. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell in for Margery, Eagan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Margery Eagan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, presenting As You Like It. This summer's free Shakespeare on the Boston Common. Shakespeare's lush romantic comedy celebrating the joys and follies of human nature. July 23rd through August 10th. comshakes.org. The Great American Recipe is back. A new group of talented home cooks showcase signature dishes in this uplifting competition. Catch an all-new episode of The Great American Recipe tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. We start with Live Music Friday from Irish folk band Solas, performing for us ahead of the Lowell Folk Festival.
I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Margery Eagan. Then it's GBH's Callie Crossley. She has the Dispatch from Nantucket, where protesters came out in droves to protest the arrival of Vice President JD Vance for a big fundraiser he had there, and more conspiracy theories swirling around former President Barack Obama. Plus, our Two More Things segment, next on BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. An Israeli government minister says Israel should starve Palestinians in Gaza and drive them out of the enclave. He made his comments in a radio interview at a time when aid agency says Gaza is at risk of famine. NPR's Hadil El-Shelchi reports.
Far-right Israeli minister Amichai Eliyahu said that, quote, no nation feeds its enemies, and that the Israeli government was, quote, rushing toward wiping out Gaza. Eliyahu is the Israeli heritage minister and oversees archaeological sites in Israel. In a statement, the Israeli prime minister's office said that Eliyahu does not speak for the government, and he's not a member of the security cabinet that determines the, quote, conduct of the war. The Israeli ambassador to Washington called the minister's comments, quote, foolish, and that they did not reflect the Israeli government's policy. Death from hunger has sharply increased in Gaza as Israel is severely restricting the entry of food into the territory. Hadil El-Shelchi, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Trump is on his way to Scotland. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the president will be there for several days with trade and golf on the agenda.
President Trump is expected to receive a warm reception from politicians, such as British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, with whom he'll meet to discuss a previously announced trade deal with the United Kingdom. Trump's also expected to meet with Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney. But Trump will also be met by protesters who are planning demonstrations in Aberdeen, where he'll meet with the Prime Minister, as well as other major cities. The trip will also be a chance to visit his golf courses in Aberdeen and Turnberry, and possibly escape some of the drama that has consumed Washington, notably questions about his own connections to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and demands from his own MAGA base to release more information about the Epstein case. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Before leaving for Scotland, the president was asked about clemency for Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. He said he has the right to, but it's something he hasn't thought about. He said people should really focus on how well the country is doing. The Justice Department is suing New York City over its sanctuary laws. NPR's Sarah Ventry has more on the story.
The DOJ stated in its complaint that, quote, New York City has long been at the vanguard of interfering with enforcing this country's immigration laws, and that these policies violate the Constitution's Supremacy Clause. The suit was filed not just against the city of New York, but also the NYPD, New York City Council, and even Mayor Eric Adams, who said in 2023 that the influx of migrants to New York would, quote, destroy the city. This move by the federal government is the latest in a series of suits over similar policies that limit local cooperation with federal immigration authorities.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Fenway Park's unionized food and drink workers are officially on a 3-day strike. We're now past a noon deadline set by the workers that if a contract agreement wasn't reached between the workers and their employer, the food service giant Aramark, they would go on strike. Boston Globe reports that the workers authorized a strike over a number of issues, including wanting more limits on automation like self-checkout kiosks and better pay. Fenway's union workers are advocating for fans to still come out to the games this weekend, but not to buy food and drink inside the stadium in solidarity with these striking workers. They say there's plenty of great options right outside the park. The strike also affects the workers at MGM Music Hall. And just in time for 90-degree weather, the Rich Ice Cream Company is recalling 110,000 of its ice cream bars sold in 23 states, including here in Massachusetts. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the recall is due to listeria contamination. Symptoms for listeria can include fevers, muscle aches, fatigue, headaches, stiff necks, confusion, loss of balance, and seizures. And there are 10 flavors of ice cream bars that are affected. The most popular are chocolate crunch cake, strawberry shortcake, crumbled cookie, orange cream, fudge frenzy, and cotton candy twirl. Hazy, hot, and Henry today, high in the mid-90s. We're at 90 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Welcome to hour number 2 of BPR. Jim Browdy, NBC 10 Boston. Sue O'Connell's in for Margery. Hello again, Sue. How are you?
Good day.
We're live from the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Later in the show, in the 1 o'clock hour, for those concerned about the housing crisis in this country, Congressman Jake Auchincloss and the head of the economics department at MIT, Jon Gruber, are going to be here at 1 o'clock with what they say is a solution. So we've almost made it through another grueling week and to another edition of Live Music Friday. Care of Solas, described by the Globe as, quote, the finest Celtic ensemble this country has ever produced. They're performing for us in a moment. They're also performing at the 38th annual totally free Lowell Folk Festival from tonight till Sunday, lowellfolkfestival.org for more info. It's a return to their roots after nearly a decade-long hiatus by taking the stage at Lowell Folk. They're coming home to one of the first stages they ever performed on as a group. We'll talk with founders Seamus, Eagan, and Winifred Horan, plus the Lowell Folk Festival's Viliesis. He'll be zooming in from Lowell in a couple of minutes. But first, here's Solas performing a piece called The Wiggly Jigs. Welcome to you all. Thanks for joining us. totally and completely great. They and others, we'll hear who the others are in a minute, are going to be the Lowell Folk Festival. It starts today, runs through Sunday. The founders, Seamus, Eagan, and Win Haran are going to join us in about 10 seconds here, and we'll be joined by somebody remotely who's helping to set up the Folk Festival as we speak. That was totally great, you two, Win and Seamus. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
Thrilled to have you. So tell us who was playing along with you.
Well, starting there on the far side, that's Mr. John Williams on the button accordion.
Hello, John Williams. That was great.
And then we've got the two empty spaces, and next to that, we've got Nuala Kennedy on the flute and vocals. And that's Alan Murray on the guitar and the vocals as well.
That's amazing. So talk a little bit about coming back together and tell us the story, right? So Solas played for a long time, took a long break, and kind of like a boy band, decided to get back together. You're back together. Talk a little bit about that evolution, that story, that journey.
Well, we had been, we started in the mid-90s in New York, and pretty much from the time that we started, we didn't stop for about 21 years. So there came a point where we were just we needed a little bit of a holiday from...
What does it mean? People sick of each other? What does that mean?
Yes.
Seriously? Is that what I mean? Okay, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Okay, Wynn, go
And
ahead.
when you said break, though, did you mean break, or did you mean we're done and let's see what happens?
No, to be quite honest, actually, as Seamus said, we were full on for the first 10 years. It was really intense, first 10 years. And at that point, we were talking about, well, we should take a break. And I think at around that time, maybe 9/11 happened. So we were forced off the road, and it felt like it was healthy for us to be off the road. So we got a taste of it. But then, of course, Solas being Solas, it just ramped up again, and we were really busy. And life was just happening all around us, but we were kind of missing some of it.
Who initiated the notion that everybody should get back together?
I think
The two of us.
Yeah, we
had a nice discussion after.
Talked about it.
Did you talk to each other during the hiatus?
No, we checked in on each other.
Occasionally, okay.
Yeah, is this the news of the day? No, we did. We checked in on each other. We'll always check in on each other, myself and Seamus. I mean, he checked on me. Like I said, we were missing life stuff. Like I moved home to take care of my parents. There was a lot of stuff that needed to happen that had been neglected over all of those years. And I think in a way for us, COVID came anyway shortly thereafter when we decided to stop. So it kind of felt like, okay, the world is stopping around us. This is a good time for us to be off the road.
So when you two start talking and say, maybe we should do this again, is there not a high... When you're almost cult-like in your former lives. I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean it in a loving, supportive way. Were you not nervous about whether or not people were going to still want you when you return?
Absolutely.
I wasn't.
This is why we're different.
I was like, they totally still want me.
I would have loved to be there like the first performance back, right? Is anyone going to be there? Everyone's going to be there. Are you sure someone's going to be there?
So let's talk about the guy who's honest. What was your anxiety like?
Well, you kind of out of sight, out of mind, and the world moves very quickly, and we do what we do, and it's a very sort of niche thing, and so we all kind of over that 10-year span, we all kind of went off and did our own things, and so but it was like I said, no idea what was going to happen. But we were so sort of genuinely excited. It was so lovely. Like once we got back out there, and the audience seemed to still want us, and it was nice.
Seamus and Wynn, I feel the obligation every time we have a Celtic band here. I feel an obligation, since I believe in transparency, to say I was not a big fan of Celtic music, and then all of a sudden a guy walked down the hall at GBH. He heard me say it on the air. The guy's name was Brian O'Donovan, and he said in a very sweet way, "Come with me." And we went into a studio, and he played some things, and it was literally like a 180 in 2 minutes. And I know you have a connection to the brilliant, wonderful, horribly missed Brian O'Donovan. Yeah. So, Seamus, starting with you, and then Wynn, tell us about that connection.
Well, my family moved back to the States in the early 80s, and it wasn't shortly after that I had the good fortune. He was running a festival. He was putting a festival on at Foxborough Stadium, and he invited myself and my two sisters. We had a little band, so we all went up to Foxborough, and it was just, it was amazing. It's like, I was, I think, maybe 13 years old, and I was playing jigs and reels on the field on Patriots, and I was just like, this is amazing. And Brian was the person who was just pulling it all together, and that's and from that moment on, I don't think there was probably a month or a couple of months that went by that I didn't speak to him, or like we were, that was the beginning of a very long friendship.
How important, Wynn, do you think Brian was to what I at least see as the explosion of Celtic music in this region of the country?
Oh, his influence and his passion and dedication to the community here in Boston and the suburbs has been massive. And it wasn't just with the Irish community either. That was really beautiful to see Brian working behind the scenes, so many other parts of the community that needed help or needed exposure or whatever we needed. Brian was there. And then, of course, the radio show was his radio show. I remember when we first found out that Brian was sick, that was the first thing I thought. There's going to be such an empty space for so many listeners and, community radio listeners, and just, that sense of family. Brian and his wife, Lindsay, and the O'Donovan family, they have a huge understanding and a beautiful relationship with themselves, but they also make everyone feel a part of their family. And that's what I think most people miss now that Brian's gone. I mean, he's still with us, obviously, but it's that sort of rounding people up to
He was sort of like
connected.
a gravitational pull for all of
A
us.
YouTube commenter wants to just point out they loved your contributions to Celtic Christmas Sojourn, so folks are definitely with us here today feeling all the feels.
Oh, Lee is here. Oh, I was waiting. I was going to say, is Lee going to show up? Lee Viliesis from the Lowell Folk Festival is with us. Welcome. I know you're interrupting your busy day to spend a few minutes. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're great. We're very happy.
All right, so tell us all about it quickly. This is such an exceptional festival that happens all the time. How much does it cost? Is it free? Who's playing? What can we do?
Well, we're entering our 38th year. I've been out in the field all day making sure our stages get in place and that we have porta-johns and water and ice and all the wonderful things. Our bands are starting to warm up and do their sound checks. Lowell is the longest running and the second largest free folk festival in the country. And it's a great time to experience, all of the music that our culture as a world has to offer.
How many bands, Lee, over the weekend?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that.
Roughly.
I think it's 18 this year. It might be 19.
Well, let me tell you, the only thing I like almost as much as music is food, and I'm told
my favorite.
The food deal is really huge and great. Yes.
Yes, we have 22. See, now that number I know. We have 22 local community nonprofits that make up our food groups, right? So these are churches, schools, community centers right here in the Merrimack Valley and all the way down to Boston that are set up for selling their sort of traditional ethnic cuisine. So we have a Burmese tent and a Thai tent and if you've never had an Armenian lamb burger, that's my personal favorite.
I've had many Armenian lamb burgers, and I would suggest people try them. One last thing from me is we talk almost nonstop about the thing that Trump and his people have savaged. And one of the things where money has been withdrawn, disappeared, is with you guys. And I worried when I first heard about it that you weren't going to be able to pull this off. And you have. So what have you been able to do that allowed you to survive that? I think it's an NEA funding loss. What'd you do?
It wasn't NEA. We did lose $20,000 from the NEA. You know what? I give so much credit to the community, right? The community loves this festival, and the festival loves the community. And they really did a huge step up. We had a lot of local business support. We had some private funders who are very deeply invested in the arts in Lowell and in the Merrimack Valley. It's been really amazing to see the outpouring of what I also like to call spite donations, because we've gotten a lot of those statements that really chastise what the political agenda in Washington is doing to defund the arts. So it's really been beautiful to see the support that the community has had. And we have 3 new named stages. I mean, same stage, new naming rights. Thanks to our friends at Rockland Trust Bank, the Nancy L. Donahue Foundation, and the Saab Foundation.
That's great.
Like, great, incredible reach outs of community funding.
And folks can get more information, of course, at lowellfestival.org, right?
Hey, Lee.
Lowell Folk Festival.org.
Right.
Thanks for your time. We know you got to go back to work. We really
Get
appreciate
out there.
you joining us.
It's
Thanks so
hot
much.
out there, so I appreciate it. Thank you
We're
so
glad
much,
to have
guys.
you.
Keep hydrating.
When are you guys playing, Seamus?
We're playing our first show is tonight, 8 o'clock.
And you've done this place before. You've done the festival before.
This was one of Solas's first gigs.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
really
it was the
great. I
first-
think it was the
first
first
festival.
festival we ever did together. And the NCTA and everybody at the festival, it's really beautiful that they're, I think it's the 30th year for them.
30th, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and-
38th. I'm sorry.
Oh, 38th. And
yeah.
so when they found
30th
out that we
year.
were coming back, they wanted to have us for
That's
our 30th.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Now, do you think in retrospect you made a big mistake when you named the group Solas rather than Murder of Crows? Was that a huge mistake on
Actually,
your part?
and John Williams, our accordion player, came up with the name Murder of Crows.
Notice he's not even looking in
He's
your
not paying
direction
attention.
now. He's embarrassed.
But I don't know. You could argue that we could have taken a much different path if we stuck with John's suggestion.
I would say so.
Murder of Crows. I think our demographic would have been different for sure.
You know, speaking of demographics, can you talk to me about, just quickly, the thread that connects folk music? You know, I never realized this until I listened to Dolly Parton's America, and how the song My Tennessee Mountain Home connects with people no matter where they're from. You are in a genre which you're expanding but staying true to your roots. Why do we all find a song in folk music, regardless of where it's from, that speaks to us?
Wow.
In 10 seconds.
I think because folk music is of the people, by the people, and for the people, right? Folk music, it speaks to the people's needs, and that's why it continues to thrive and why we can all access it, I think.
All right,
And it tells our stories.
Yeah.
Let's go hear some more then.
No, before we go hear some more, before we do, I realize what we've done. Well, we've talked about the folk festival and say go to lowellfolkfestival.org for more information. How do they follow you guys after tonight? They go see you tonight. How do they find you?
Well, they can go to our website, solastheband.com.
I think that's a great name.
Yeah.
Or murderthecrows.com.
That would be more memorable.
What are you
maybe.
playing this time, Win?
This time we're going to do a song featuring Nuala Kennedy on vocals, and it's a song from our very first album, called The Newry Highwayman.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Gently put your headsets down, and we can't wait to hear you perform again. So it's lowellfolkfestival.org. Solas is playing tonight. 19 bands, or what did she say?
A lot.
20?
A lot.
A lot of bands. I do
A lot of
remember
food.
22 food operations, and it's free. And this is in 38 years. And you should support them just like the community has supported them, as Lee told us a couple of minutes ago. I'm really excited to hear them yet again. Here is Solas performing Newry Highwayman.
Solas. They perform tonight at the Lowell Folk Festival. 3 days of food and free music. LowellFolkFestival.org for information. Thanks to Festival Director Viliesis for joining us. Coming up after this.
Oh, and Solas, Solas, theband.com.
And not the Crows.
Not the Crows.
Okay. That'll be your subset. We'll do it. All right. Coming up after this quick break, GBH's Callie Crossley joins us. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Sue O'Connell. In for Margery Eagan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Radio Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, energy-guzzling AI centers are a drain on the resources of local communities. The EPA is shutting down its research arm, firing scientists, and solar power is in the spotlight. It's our environmental news roundtable. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And M&M Skylights, located in Stoneham, installing and servicing the full range of Velux skylights that can help bring air and more natural light into your home. Skylight consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com. And 30 Tigers, presenting Crown of Roses, the new album from Patty Griffin. Available now on all music streaming services and at local record stores.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and NBC 10 Boston. Sue O'Connell, she's sitting in for Margery. Margery's off today. She'll be back on Monday. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined now at the BPL desk by GBH's Callie Crossley. And by the way, let's be clear, she is not just a colleague of ours, but apparently a celebrity. Listen up.
A lot of people that they are celebrities. So she just coming outside, sitting there. One of their customer coming to me and just like, "Do you know her?" I said, "No, I don't know her." Second customer, third customer. It's just
That's
like,
funny.
Everybody knows you.
Where were you?
Oh, we lost that. And essentially, that was, well, whatever. That was Sohair Fateh, who's fabulous. We met the other day, the co-owner of La Saison Bakery in Cambridge earlier this week. And he was talking about his favorite customer, the celebrity, Callie Crossley. In addition to being a celebrity, she's also a host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. It airs Sunday nights at 6 here on 89.7. You can also hear Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. She also co-hosts for GBH's The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2. Right here at 89.7, and on Friday, their weekend review, like today, is live at the library. Hey, Callie, how are you?
Hey, how are you guys?
Hi, Callie.
By the way, if people didn't listen the other day, not only were the couple who owned La Saison wonderful and was the pastry incredible, uninvited, we get an email that's about 11 pages long from Callie. Again, we didn't ask for this email. Going through every piece of pastry, how great it is, how great the parking is, how great the seats are.
It's true.
It really is a fabulous place.
It's a lovely
Concord
place.
Ave in
Concord Ave.
Fresh Pond.
It's such a great community spot, too. You know,
just
it's
see
really
Callie
lovely.
sitting out there having a croissant. It's all good.
With my book, I'm just reading and chilling and just...
Food's great, and they were great. They were terrific. So, thanks.
All right, Callie Crossley, we've been here a long time. We've seen the news business contract. We've seen it expand. We've seen it change. And we're going through one of those periods right now. We've got news. There are cuts over at WBZ TV in front of the camera as well behind the camera. Obviously, at GBH, there was news this week. What's your take on what's happening right now? Obviously, there are concerns about the Trump administration. There are concerns about the economy. There's concerns about how do we make money from social media, which is, we've talked about at length, is so complicated. It's not the same as it is on the radio and on television. What's your take?
Well, my take for us, obviously, is that, you know, we lost our funding. But we're still here, as the signs say. So that pretty much says it all. And I know you had our boss on earlier this week talking about exactly what that means. My take for local stations is kind of what you said. There's so many changes going on and a lot of uncertainty. And this it looks like a purging not just here, but across the country. I mean, I know you probably have friends, too, that you hear from all the time where people have just been laid off. And I mean large numbers, not like a couple of people. So relatively speaking, these are not large numbers at BZ, but they're, substantive. And it makes you take pause, particularly when you have names in that group of folks who are very familiar to us as viewers and have been, like Beth Germano and Dr. Malika Marshall, Malika Marshall, sorry. So, it's concerning. Now, I would say, if you were talking about the network, the deal that just went through with Skydance is going to mean all kinds of things. I mean, they've only released a couple of the tentpole agreements. One that I pay close attention to, which is that the agreement involves that they must get rid of all DEI programming. And then they must have someone who's on staff to be a viewpoint diversity oversight person. We don't know what else is in that agreement, so I expect there may be some layoffs there as well.
Let me ask you the same question I asked the woman from Media Matters who was with us an hour ago. I don't really quite understand when you work for a news operation that goes from one of the most respected in the history of the industry to total and complete capitulation so the boss can have a huge payday. How do the vast majority of the upper income journalists decide I want to stay and work here under these conditions? I mean, they are, the one FCC commissioner who voted against this, the vote yesterday was 2-1, Gomez is her name. She says this is also a First Amendment violation, telling this company that they can't do any programming around DEI. I mean, you may like that, you may not like that. It's reaching into the company, saying what speech they can engage in and not. Why do you think there's not more of people saying en masse, no more, we're not going to do this anymore?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. First of all, people would like to have a job.
Yeah. I'm not talking about people making $75,000 or $80,000 a year.
I understand that. But even the people at the highest levels, here's your choice. You stay there, perhaps, and you see if this is something you can work with, perhaps. Or you go set yourself up independently, which is no small thing.
I know that.
Now,
a
number of people have done that, and they're over on Substack or some other places. The field is crowded with a lot of folks who have saw themselves in that position.
And they don't have paid time off. They don't have matching 401ks. They have to buy their own insurance. There's a whole institutional support that comes along with working for a company versus being on Substack or YouTube on your own.
And resources. A long time ago, I was recruited for 60 Minutes. I was shocked by, and it's not the same now, but still, it would be a lot. The level of resources that this show had was shocking to me, and I was coming from ABC's 2020. And they were not cheap. It was shocking how much was available. So you have to think long and hard about whether you want to give that up. I think there will be people who will be put in a position where they say, I can't take it anymore. And I would refer you both to a really interesting interview that David Remnick did with Leslie Stahl for The New Yorker. And I think you heard it there. She's like, this is not right, but I don't know what to do. And if there was anybody who was at the high level of payment, and also she could retire. I mean, she doesn't really... She's at the point where she could go out on a high note if you wanted to, if you're thinking about it in that way. Yeah. And yet she wants to work, and she's
Can I say one thing about this, though? One of the beauties, there are good days and bad days at work, like there are always. One of the great things about this show for Margery and me, and I know our team, is we have never once been told in 11, 12, how many years we've been here, ever, that we can't talk about something or we have to talk about something. Not once. And that's pretty rare in normal times. I don't know how I'd feel if our boss said to me today, for whom I have great respect, Dan Lothian runs the newsroom, who said, by the way, you can't talk about DEI. Don't do that Trump story because, even though they cut a deal, he's famous for backing out of deals whenever he has an excuse. And I'm not suggesting I'm this great principled person who's I don't know what I do, but it is really hard to do your job as a principled person in this industry when the pressure from above is not to say certain things.
And I would, just to make people clear again, that's exactly the situation that 60 Minutes was in until even before the deal went through, the then executive producer of the show was then being said, hey, we're trying to negotiate this deal. Can you kind of tap down?
But they didn't tamp down
Well,
anything.
I know, but I'm saying, that's when it happened. And
Yeah,
that's when all
that's true.
And he decided, at this point, I'm leaving. And according to Leslie Stahl in that interview at the New Yorker, he asked them not to go, to stay and to do whatever.
To fight.
I think it's interesting that in the week that they announced the deal with all these points that we know about, they announced the new head of 60 Minutes. So
who's an internal person who's been there, which is a good sign, by the way.
So we'll see.
So before we leave this topic, can I read, you're a pretty insightful person. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so Susan Goldberg, as you said, was on our show yesterday.
Yes.
She's the boss.
Yes.
CEO and president. And she made a comment in answer to a question we asked that has a lot of my friends last night reaching out to me saying, what do you think she really meant? So I figured, you worked here a while, you know Susan. Here's Susan Goldberg. We asked her yesterday about, in light of the fiscal constraints that everybody's under after the House and Senate did what they did, is this talk in the community about possible merger between BUR and GBH real? Here's Susan's response to the question.
You know, I think a lot about what's happened in Indiana. So in Indiana, I believe there are 17 public media stations. And they also just lost their state funding in Indiana. It would make a lot of sense for there to be a new way to think about how do you manage this? Does everybody need an HR department and a finance department? Can there be cooperation to keep the service on the front end?
You didn't answer the question.
I know I didn't.
So does that mean something's going on you don't want us to know about?
Jim, you will be the first to know.
I don't think so, but okay.
Okay, do you want to do a little interpretation there?
If there's something going on, it's not happening now, so she can't really say anything. I mean, I think people need to understand that just because they cut the funding, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and they'll be answered in October when actually the checks stop coming.
The new fiscal year, yeah.
We'll be able to see what the landscape is. So I don't think she can answer the question, actually. Now, would she want to speculate in that direction? Because people are always asking about it. I don't think people also understand it's not as simple as it looks. You know, they have a license that's attached to Boston University. You just can't be walking out, oh, well, today we'll like to go with GBH. That's not how it happens. So who knows what other entanglements are involved on our end, on their end, or even if that's ever going to be a conversation. What I interpreted was, I'm not talking about it now.
I think that was that's exactly how I interpreted it.
That's what I interpreted.
We're talking to Callie Crossley.
So, Callie, one of the challenges of covering Donald Trump forever has been not falling for every single little bit of bait that he puts out, every single bit of distraction. And I was listening to Kara Swisher this morning on her podcast, and they were talking about how they think there's an AI generator for real that gives them a topic every day that they should talk about to distract from the Epstein file. So we're gonna deport Rosie O'Donnell. See you later. And this week or today or this morning, you know, it's Barack Obama committed treason. Even though we know that Tulsi Gabbard kind of is misinterpreting, to put it politely, the details around what the report found. Well, how do you think the media is doing right now covering Donald Trump around these distractions and around the meat of actually what's happening?
Well, I think it's difficult because every now and then one of the distractions blows up. Let's look at Epstein. Who knew Epstein was going to blow up like this? So you could have sort of said, okay, well, that's not going to really be anything. We're not going to pay that close attention to it because there's some other issues having to do with this big, beautiful bill that really require our full attention and the kind of research and resources that we always say is what you want to get from reliable and credible institutions who cover the news. So there is that part of it. The other part of it is some of it is just mind-blowingly so far out in the universe you can't imagine. And in this case, my first response when I heard that was Michelle Obama was right. So all of y'all got on her about not going to the funeral where she would have to sit next to him.
Jimmy Carter's
and
funeral.
let me remind you that Barack Obama sat next to the president and had a chit-chat. Mm-hmm. And I guess he wasn't calling him treasonous in that moment. This is insane. My second thought or third thought on this is that this is not something that Barack Obama himself is going to take quietly. So I'm waiting to see what his response is going to be for real. I mean, his initial response was, I can't even say anything because it's so out of bounds.
Well, I don't know if we'll hear a response. I mean, is Mark Leibovich scheduled? Is Mark going to be with us at some point? Did you say to me? Mark Leibovich did a fabulous piece about Thursday of next week. But Leibovich, brilliant reporter, wrote a story about where's Barack Obama, essentially, as the United States is imploding, at least its government is imploding, and he'll talk to us about that on Thursday. So I don't know if we're here, but, getting back to the distraction thing, I am really sensitive. Margery and I and our team talk about this almost every day. Do we even talk about the Obama thing? Do we even talk about changing the commanders' names back to the Redskins? And while we intellectually know it is totally an effort to distract from whether it's the Epstein scandal or the big, beautiful bill, as you say, when you're attacking when you're a sitting president and you say a foreign president, based upon, everybody knows, absolutely nothing, has committed treason, which means, by the way, if convicted, would be executed.
Right.
When you find him saying, let's get rid of this commander name and let's go back to that racist name that people railed against for years, how do you not cover that, even though you're following his bait? Do you know?
Yeah, you know what I thought about with the whole Washington Commanders name change thing, that bait. I thought that what we did for the most part, I'm talking about those of us in the industry, waited to see, let's see what the Commanders are going to say. Let's see what the other team is going to say. And their response was, moving on, we're not dealing with this. And so that, in some ways, gives you some cue about what weight to put on it in the moment. And I think that's the only thing that we can do. You have to weigh everything in the moment to say, is this, at this moment, something we should be talking about relative to the impact of the big, beautiful bill or not? What should we be looking at?
It's hard. It's really hard.
It's very hard. And this is why you want incredible journalists doing this work.
So let's talk about Callie Crossley, some things that we did look at last year. Last year, I spent a lot of time telling people TikTok was going to be going away. I didn't have it on my work or personal cell phone because I didn't want it I didn't want it following me. I had concerns about the Chinese government and their access to, in a different way, accessing our information than the usual suspects here in America. And today, I think I had at that time maybe 5 TikTok followers. Now I have 40,000 TikTok followers. So that's the kind of hypocrite I am. I just want to say that up top.
Okay.
But I thought that we were banning TikTok and that Donald Trump was brokering deals and all sorts of things were going to happen. Does he just decide he's not going to follow the law and he's just going to, and people like me are just going to go, oh, great, I'm doing so well on TikTok. I guess I won't worry about it anymore.
That is exactly correct.
Okay,
I think the blame falls on Congress. Congress passed this. What is Congress doing? This is the question I keep asking. As the president can say whatever he, or at some point I hope she wants to say about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But if that is a role that Congress has, it's incumbent upon the people sitting in those seats to say, hold up a minute, that's our job. You don't get to say, even if we agree with you. They are pretty much mute on everything. So why wouldn't they be mute on a bill they passed? Remember?
Not a bill, it's law, as you said.
Exactly.
A law in America.
And say nothing.
By the way, I hope people don't trivialize this because it's TikTok. It's an entertainment thing. This is a law. I just looked up the dates. The first ban date was January 19th, at which point, based upon a law passed by the United States government, it disappears if it's not sold to, I think, a buyer here or whatever the law said. The extension, which was, I think, totally illegal, based on nothing,
that is correct,
for 75 days was till April 5th. Again, is it April 5th yet? Oh, it is April 5th,
yes,
actually.
Yes.
I mean, the troubling part of that, I hope people know without us telling, is they have basically decided, the Republicans in is they don't have to obey the law. And by the way, the issue is not whether you're happy that TikTok still exists. You can be as happy as you want. The law says it shouldn't exist, and it does. I mean, it's just, we are sheep. We are a bunch of sheep.
Well, I just recall, I believe it was Josh Hawley.
Hawley. From Missouri.
Is it Senator?
Senator from Missouri,
He was the one, when the deadline passed the first time, and said, what's happening here? I believe it was what's going on? There's a law. Stop it. Have you heard from him?
Well, Hawley, we've heard from him something else. So Josh Hawley is most famous for two things. One, he is most famous for giving a clenched fist to the January 6 people.
On the way
and
in.
then there's the fabulous video of him running faster than a jackrabbit for his life from the demonstrators.
Yeah.
The only thing better than that is after he voted for the big, beautiful bill to throw 11 to 17 million people off Medicaid, he then filed a bill to restore the funding for Medicaid that he just voted to take away. I mean, does it get, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
A reminder, you can follow Boston Public Radio on TikTok at Boss Public Radio.
Thank you.
Okay, Callie, I want to talk about Malcolm-Jamal Warner because I think I was reminded this. I'm older to have his poster up in my bedroom, but I had several colleagues at NBC 10 Boston tell me he was the only black face they had in their teen magazines that they could put up in their rooms. He, of course, played among many, many, many roles, but most notably as a young teenager, Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, and he died in a swimming accident at just age 54. What does he mean to culture? What does Malcolm-Jamal Warner, what was his contribution?
We have a minute, Kelly.
Gosh.
Sorry.
It's so broad, and the most important thing was, as he himself said long ago, that he represented a part of Black America that often never got a platform or visibility to the level that Cosby did. And he was so proud to be a part of that. And he continued that well in his roles beyond that, as a musician, as a director, all of that. And he was so good. He was excellent. So if you want to look at somebody and think about the term Black excellence, that's who he was. And his legacy is there for a long time to come.
And but I'm embarrassed. I knew a little bit of his post-Cosby career, but his career was spectacular. Not to mention the fact, this I knew nothing about, that he won a Grammy for spoken word
he
poetry
was
stuff.
directing. He was great. He just...
And he made the transition to adulthood from a child
That's a great
actor.
point.
I mean, without
he said that was going to be tough, and he was happy that he was able to do it.
What are you doing Sunday night?
Well, speaking
You'd be at La Saison, but it's closed, so you can't be there, of course.
You'll find a way.
We're talking about, it's my environmental roundtable, and we're talking about the elimination of the research arm of the EPA, which is really huge. And we're talking about really increase in solar energy and excitement about it, something that Bill McKibben has been talking about a lot.
Indeed.
And then people don't think it's happening, but it actually is happening. So that's a renewable energy that people have embraced, and we're going to go further on to do that. So we're spending a lot of time talking about it.
You know what I love about Bill McKibben has been saying this for months. He joins us once a month. He wrote The End of Nature, which really started all this in the late 80s. When Bill mentioned last time and the time before, people shouldn't call wind and solar alternative energy anymore. It's not, because it's cheaper than the stuff that is fouling our environment. And I hope people take that to heart.
It's a reset.
I think it is.
I think it's a reset.
What are you doing on your show Sunday?
You just asked me. I
did ask you that. I wanted to see if you remember. What are you doing next Sunday then? Let's try that again. Whatever.
I actually do know that, but it's not coming to mind right now.
Oh, good. No, it's obviously not coming to my mind either.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Callie, it's great to see you.
Oh, boy.
How many times do I have to hear this?
Let me quote Susan.
Oh, my God.
Let me quote Susan. I'm not talking about that right now.
Of course, as you've now heard us several times, Callie Crossley is the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley.
What's she doing on it?
It's on Sunday night at 6 o'clock. She's doing an environmental
Did I
thing.
ask the first question, or did you ask?
Who knows? We don't know.
Okay,
Monday, Callie commentaries, of course.
Okay.
You know all about it. Culture Show coming up daily at 2. All right, after this quick break, just enough time for 2 more things. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Sue O'Connell, and for Margery Eagan, you're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the BPL and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a group of Harvard alum want the school to follow Columbia's lead and strike a deal with the Trump administration. Some Market Basket customers are weighing a boycott to support the chain's suspended CEO. And this week's Joy Beat, a Quincy dance studio that hosts a program that helps kids with special needs dance, connect, and shine. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Chevalier Theater. Hidden Brain host and executive editor Shankar Vedantam is bringing 7 perceptions from the first decade of the podcast to the stage on August 2nd at the Chevalier Theater. More at chevaliertheater.com. And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy sitting in for Margery Eagan, who's back Monday. Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Before we get to 2 more things, did we ask her what she's doing Sunday?
She has a show. I don't know if you know this on Sunday. Okay. It's about the environment. You were asking her about it.
It's time for our brief leftover. The couple of things we couldn't get to for 2 more things. Sue O'Connell, you go first.
Yes, I'd like to talk about why we haven't got a nickname yet for the Thomas Michael Menino Convention and Exhibition Center. Your former colleague and my current colleague, Robert Goldstein, now at NBC 10 Boston,
Indeed.
he went out and asked people what they think the nickname should be. Here's what some people told him.
Not to be a wise guy, but I mean, it was called Mumbles for a little while. The Mumbles Center.
C&M. Huh? I like that.
Yeah, why do you like that?
Quick and easy, straight cut to the point. C&M.
So as Robert and I worked on, we have nicknames all over the city. The Boston Public Library is the BPL. The Prudential
It's not
Center
exactly
is
a nickname.
the Pru.
That is a nickname.
Okay, the Salt and Pepper Bridge is the Longfellow Bridge.
Very good.
Or maybe it's the other way around. So I
Thank
think
you.
we need to come up with a good nickname for the Thomas Michael Menino Convention and Exhibition Center. So I'll be taking your calls at TikTok, and we can figure out what it is.
I got to tell the truth. Not only have I never thought about that, I don't intend to think about it. By the way, it's only been the Thomas M. Menino Convention Center for like a week.
We're
You know
Boston.
that?
Let's go. All
Okay.
right, Jim, what's on your mind?
Now, this actually is, I don't know if everybody, I hope everybody saw this. Yesterday, Donald Trump goes over to the Fed because his goal was to embarrass Jerome Powell, who's the chair of the Fed, and hopefully get him out. And his thinking is, I'm going to get him out because there's a major cost overrun on the rehabbing of the Fed office building. And by the way, if you've seen the video, beyond the content, which we're going to get to in a second, they're both wearing hard hats. When you saw, let's say, Donald Trump wearing the hard hat, what did you think?
I thought, great, we're going to get a rendition of YMCA, and he's brought the Village People back together again, the originals. But that isn't what happened.
Okay, it isn't what happened. But here, you got to listen really carefully because Jerome Powell's voice is not quite as strong as it should be. Here's an exchange between Trump and the Fed chair. And by the way, at one point, if you didn't see it early on, Trump pulls a piece of paper out of his pocket, which allegedly has all these damning numbers on it. Here it is.
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
This came from us?
He's looking at the paper.
I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added. Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
So part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
Okay, it's a building that's being built, it was built 5 years ago. Now, the reason I did that is not just because Trump is humiliated, but because I will never get over someone like Deborah Birx, for example, who had a reputation as one of the most important people in the public health world, worldwide for years, who sat there mute when Donald Trump in the press room at the White House said, you should inject bleach. Do you think that's a good idea? He looks over at Birx, and Birx, who I think destroyed her whole reputation in that 2 seconds, nods in agreement. Good for Powell. I don't think I'd have the courage standing next to the President of the United States, whoever he was, to take him on in a respectful way. He did, and he leveled him. It was a beautiful moment.
And the question from one of the reporters, what would you do, Donald Trump, if you had a building that was late and over budget? He said, I'd fire them. The reality is Donald Trump never paid anybody whenever they didn't, and then he would fire them, and then
So
they
they
would
were never
sue him.
over budget.
They were never over budget because he always fired them before they completed it, as so many lawsuits against him. So, that's good. Good pick, Jim. I'm gonna dress like him
It was
for
actually
Halloween.
Jamie's idea. One more time.
Jamie.
But it's a building that's being built. No, it was built 5 years ago.
It's still over.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Fed Chair Powell.
All right, we're out of time with this segment, but coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Congressman Jake Auchincloss and MIT economist Jon Gruber join us. He's Jim Braude. I'm NBC 10 Boston Sue O'Connell in for Margery Eagan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The news and reporting you hear on GBH is made possible by the listeners who trust the GBH newsroom to deliver fact-based news and information every day. Support the journalism you trust. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Maine Maritime Museum, offering oyster tasting cruises throughout the summer. Visitors can learn about aquaculture from Maine's oyster farmers and experience freshly shucked oysters. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org. And Cornerstone at Canton, an assisted living community with services designed to help seniors age in place, offering respite and trial stay options to help during recovery or when exploring new living arrangements. More at cornerstonecanton.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 3 of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss joins us, along with MIT economist Jon Gruber, making the case for new cities, as in we need to build a lot and quickly if we're going to get ourselves out of the housing crisis. They'll describe their solution. We'll also briefly check in with the congressman on the House's Epstein drama, Dems attempting to stand up to Trump in D.C., and more.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Eagan. Then it's a segment that's tailor-made for Jim Braude. It's peak burger season, so we'll open up the lines and get your favorite places, recommendations, where you get them and how you make them, and what kind of fixins do you like. The All-American Burger and you. That's next on the third hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today he's considering what he called alternative options to negotiations with Hamas on a ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S. recalled its negotiating team from Qatar yesterday after weeks of talks with no major breakthrough. President Trump says he doesn't think Hamas wants a deal.
Don't forget, we got a lot of hostages out. So now we're down to the final hostages. And they know what happens after you get the final hostages. And basically, because of that, they really didn't want to make a deal. I saw that. So they pulled out, and they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to clean it up.
The president spoke this morning before leaving for Scotland for a 4-day visit. France says it will recognize a state of Palestine as ceasefire talks have failed again, and the humanitarian disaster in Gaza worsens. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports President Emmanuel Macron says there is no alternative.
Writing on X, Macron said France will recognize a Palestinian state at the UN in September. The urgent need today, said Macron, is for the war in Gaza to end and for the civilian population to be rescued. France had originally planned to recognize a Palestinian state along with Saudi Arabia in June, but Israel's war with Iran put the issue on the back burner. The U.S. and Israeli governments denounced Macron's decision, calling it reckless and a reward for Hamas. But Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez hailed Macron's move, saying it was the only way to protect the two-state solution and peace. Macron said a demilitarized Palestinian state that recognizes Israel will contribute to the security of all in the Middle East. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has struck down a California law that required buyers of ammunition to pass a background check. Gun control advocates are calling the decision a threat to gun safety. From member station KQED, Samantha Lim reports.
The court declared the law unconstitutional and a violation of the Second Amendment since it restricts access to operable arms. A district court judge previously issued an injunction against the law, but the decision was stayed after the state appealed. Christian Heine with the nonprofit Brady United Against Gun Violence says the law functions the same as required background checks for firearm buyers.
When you look at the fact that guns are the leading killer of children and young people in this country, we have got to do everything we possibly can in the name of public safety.
A spokesperson for the California Department of Justice says the state is looking into its legal options. For NPR News, I'm Samantha Lim in San Francisco.
On Wall Street at this hour, the Dow is up 61 points. The S&P is up nearly 17. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Workers at Fenway Park and the MGM Music Hall nearby are officially on strike. The union representing the workers, Unite Here 26, gave a noon deadline today to reach a deal with the food service company Aramark. Otherwise, they'd walk off the job, and they did. Picket lines are now up, and the workers are asking people who visit Fenway Park for the LA Dodgers series this weekend to not purchase concessions inside the park. They suggest bringing your own food or visit one of the many options outside the park. This fan plans to do just that.
I think I'll eat before the game and support the people who are asking for a living wage. It's hard out here.
Meanwhile, here's something you probably won't hear inside the park this weekend.
Hey, hot dogs, who's got the beef? Who's hungry now? Hot dogs? Eat hot dogs. Eat hot dogs. Hot diggity dogs.
Fenway and MGM Music Hall employees are calling for increased wages and scheduling that respects seniority. A market basket in New Bedford has suspended dozens of immigrant employees this week following an inspection conducted by ICE. The New Bedford Light reports that workers were asked to provide Social Security cards that they used to apply for their job. Nearly 50 employees were let go after it was uncovered that they were not authorized to work in the United States. So far, none of the market basket workers have been reported to be detained by ICE. Hazy, hot, and Henry today, but here's a cool thought, a chilly one. It's 5 months until Christmas. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to Hour 3 of BPR. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston is sitting in for Margery. Margery is back on Monday. We're live at the BPL streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before I introduce our next guest, Henry just brought you a story about ICE and some workers at Market Basket. A lot of you have texted about how to find the interview we did with the two fired executives last week. Joe Schmidt and Tom Gordon were with us here at the law. 89 years at Market Basket. If you go to gbhnews.org and look for BPR, you'll find the interview they did with us last week and the interview Joe did with us an hour or two before he was fired. So first, a special thank you to our great House Speaker, Mike Johnson, for calling an early summer recess to Congress so that the House wouldn't have to vote on releasing the Epstein files, and as a result, it allowed one of our guests to join us in person. That guest is Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss. He represents Massachusetts' 4th Congressional District. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Say hi to the Speaker for us, and thanks. He joins us with a regular contributor to the show. That'd be Jonathan Gruber. John is the chair of MIT's Department of Economics. He's also the Ford Professor of Economics, who was instrumental in creating both the Massachusetts Healthcare Reform and the Affordable Care Act. He never shows up. He's always on Zoom. Obviously, he was embarrassed because the congressman was showing, so he's here too. They're here together because they work jointly on a proposed solution to something we talk about a lot on this show, our seemingly intractable housing crisis, both here and across America. Their solution, new cities. They're here to explain. Congressman John, great to see you both. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. John, I want to start with you. I realized in looking at this and in looking at some other theories and ideas that are being put forward, my mother was born in 1920 when new cities and new states and new things were still ahead of us. And there's a feeling like I never thought I'd have a new city or I would need a new city. Why do both of you think that we need new cities?
In the 1960s, in 1 year, New York City built more new housing than they do now over 20 years. We need new cities because we become stuck as a nation in terms of building the housing we need, particularly in places like Boston. And we are not, so Jake and I wrote an article in this new magazine, States Forum. As we pointed out, California is building about 100,000 fewer houses a year than it needs. We have been banging our heads against this problem for a long time. It's recently got a lot of attention, particularly with Ezra Klein's new book, Abundance. But we feel that there's still more to be done, and we want to throw out a new idea, which was really, quite frankly, inspired by an interview that Jake did with Ezra, where he sort of laid out a really interesting new vision for how we can tackle this housing problem.
By the way, that's statesforum.org if you want to check out the thing that they jointly wrote. What is a new city, Congressman?
Well, it's what America used to found every time Americans bumped into a river. For 200 years, this country founded city after city, including, of course, Boston 400 years ago. And it really encapsulated the can-do spirit that has made this the greatest nation in the history of the world. And we've got to recapture that spirit because we're stuck right now as a country. We're in a rut. We need 5 million new houses over the next decade. We need to build 5 Hoover Dams worth of nuclear power. We got to build trains that can get from A to B on time. And cities thread together all those different imperatives. And what John and I tap into is not just this imperative to build, but also the opportunity to do so right here in Massachusetts. So people tend to think about states like Massachusetts or California as being very developed. But in fact, there's a tremendous amount of both federal and state land that is redevelopable. It's brownfield sites. And the virtue of that land is that it's not subject to local zoning. So while we absolutely have to change local zoning rules in this state to enable more missing middle housing, the kind of workforce housing of 2 to 20 unit buildings, while we got to change parking minimums and staircase requirements, all that's necessary, we should also think big and bold and look at places like Fort Devens or the Weymouth Naval Air Station or the Concord Prison and say, we got a lot of land right here. It's already been built on. It already has infrastructure. It's close to the city. Let's build again.
Jon Gruber, let's stay on the problem for a minute before we get to the solution. Mark Dunkelman from Brown was here a couple of weeks ago, months ago, whatever. He wrote Why Nothing Works. And while he talked about zoning too, he expanded that. And maybe the question is, are you guys looking at it more broadly, basically describing, and I hate to put words in his mouth, but I think it's what he said, there's so many hurdles that have to be overcome. It's an individual testifying from the community who has a technical legal objection, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not just zoning, it's the whole panoply of things that we have to go through to get to the goal, which in this case is housing, affordable housing.
Jim, you're absolutely right. We have an enormous number of layers. Here's what's interesting. Every layer is well-intentioned. Every layer is trying to accomplish a goal that seems reasonable. It's just when you add them up, it's death by 1,000 cuts, and you can't get things done. And we see that. Jake mentioned nuclear power, transportation, housing. We see it everywhere. Here's where housing is an extra difficulty. Housing is extra difficulty because of local control. And local control, look, we all know the term NIMBY, and it's done in its pejorative sense. But look, people who are NIMBYs are not bad people. They're just saying, some are, but they're not bad people by virtue of being a NIMBY. If you're in a nice town and you've got a high house price because they've got a huge zoning regulation, you don't want to give that up. Because if you give that up, your house price might come down, you might get neighbors that are different, you might not like what happens to the town. So I understand the resistance, but that extra level of local resistance is what makes housing particularly difficult relative to other things. And let me just say, this is not a new problem we're pointing out. This is a problem that's been known for decades. And for decades, we've been saying we need to get towns to expand, and they won't.
So, Congressman, before you both go through how we get from here to there, do you have concerns about how this is an undemocratic? I mean, the obstacles, the hurdles you're both talking about, to a lot of people, a hurdle equals democracy, an opportunity to object, to not object. How do you respond to that concern?
When I look at federal regulatory reform, whether it's about energy, whether it's about transportation, what I always look at is the question of, is this less or is this faster? Because if we're talking about permitting reform to build new energy infrastructure, for example, My constituents do not want the Clean Water Act to be reduced in its scope or its force. They want high clean water standards, as they should. But they also expect that the government gets an answer to people within 18 months to 2 years. 10 years, 15 years is not acceptable. So I want fast, but I want high.
How do we get from here to there? Take us through some of the steps, if you would, Congressman.
The core of it is state and federal land. We're doing things on local zoning reform, but of the 250,000 units of housing that Massachusetts has to build over the next decade, the best projections are that local zoning reform gets us 20 to 40,000 of those units. And maybe that changes a little bit, but it's unlikely to get us the full 250,000. And so what John and I are saying is, let's take also a couple of really big swings. And the core inspiration to me, and John may have a different thread, is actually the very successful Superfund site program under the EPA. So the EPA has a program that basically says for sites for property out there that was previously contaminated, the EPA will de-risk that site, they'll pay for the cleanup, and then the private sector will develop it. And it's a win-win. It creates value out of nothing, with some federal dollars down first and then private sector dollars down to develop. And what John and I are basically doing is expanding the scope of that radically and saying we can actually do that for an entire potential city and say with some federal or state dollars down first for things like water or transit infrastructure, we can then develop it into what becomes a very synergistic new development with a lot more housing.
So, Jon Gruber, Margery and I often describe lovingly the State House here as the place where good ideas go to die. And I have to say, on the housing front, to their credit, the MBTA Communities Act, yes, which passed under Charlie Baker, and the housing thing, which includes the ability to build as of right and no ability locally to step the granny flats, the accessory dwelling units, is a step, I think, in the right direction here. But what role, if any, does state government have to play to make this real?
Well, state government has a big role to play.
What is
and look, let's be clear. The MBTA Communities Act is terrific. As Jake said, the best projections are 30 to 40,000 houses. Yeah. I think that's a little optimistic. We've had a total of 3,000 built or accepted to build, 2,000 in my hometown of Lexington.
Well, it's brand new. I mean, it is new.
But still. But I think the state has a huge role to play, both in the land ownership and, as we lay out in the article, in essentially the term we use is sort of playing cover for communities. Basically, it's very hard for any one community to do the right thing. It's sort of related to the democracy point. It's very hard for one community to do the right thing. The state can play a role in saying, look, we need to stop worrying only about people who live in our city today, but to think about people who could live in our city. We're busy worrying about just who's in our city today, but you think about Boston, you think about the incredible job opportunities we have here that are being lost because people can't afford to live here. That benefits all of us. If more people move in and we create more jobs, more vibrant, dynamic economy, that benefits for all of us. So the state, I think, has a really critical role to play in making this possible, in particular for dealing with local objection to an idea like this.
We're talking to Jon Gruber, who's head of the economics department at MIT, and Congressman Jake Auchincloss.
Congressman, because it's Massachusetts, we already have 4,522 texts pointing out what's wrong with this idea. And this is actually something I've been thinking about a lot. I was recently at Devers, and I was shocked at what an empty built place it was. But some of the questions are realistic. Like, for example, we have a number of greater Boston suburbs that used to have single-family ranch houses that people could afford when they left World War II and came back, and now they are multi-million-dollar houses that people can't move into. That's happening a lot all over the place. Needham, where do to change zoning to make, if we're going to come from the top down rather than the bottom up, to make those suburbs change their housing rules so that you could build more affordable housing instead of just these multi-million-dollar things. On the other hand, great, we build a city. We built a neighborhood, one texter points out, at the seaport, and none of us can afford to live there. And if you're there at night and look up, a lot of those condos don't have lights on at night because no one is living in them because they're using them. So what are the guardrails, I guess, to say, yes, we're going to build a city. Yes, it's going to serve a variety of people. It's not just going to be a real estate bondugal so someone can come in. What do you think?
A few thoughts there. So first of all, about building more in existing cities, yes. Yes, and. absolutely we should do that. The MBTA Communities Act is the state law that induces that. As we said earlier, it's on track to build tens of thousands, but probably not hundreds of thousands, which is what Massachusetts needs. And let's be clear, if Massachusetts does not build 250,000 units of housing in the next decade, we are going to suffocate the middle class. People cannot afford this state right now. The average middle class family in Massachusetts is spending more than half their income on just housing and health care. The status quo is a risk to the Bay State, all told. So we need big swings. And whether it's permitting for just one staircase for 2 to 4 story buildings, whether it's getting rid of parking minimums, whether it's by right zoning for multifamily, there's tons of things that the cities and suburbs should do that already exist. We also, though, need to lay down a bigger bet in state-owned land, including infrastructure and also state-level zoning. How do we prevent it from becoming sort of a sterile or unaffordable area? Well, we know how to do deed restriction, right? We can use low-income housing tax credits or inclusionary zoning to ensure that some of the housing units, at least, are deed restricted. We also know, more broadly, that supply works. Look at Tokyo. Tokyo is probably the best example of this. Tokyo has a booming labor market. It is an incredibly expensive place. The cost of housing in Tokyo is actually not unaffordable. And you know why? Because they build a lot of housing. And if you increase the supply of housing, you lower the price. This is what this proposal is fundamentally about, is the biggest threat to a landlord who is price gouging you on the rent is more developers.
Jon Gruber, I want to go back to the beginning for a second so I make sure everybody's on the same page, including me. New city literally means new city.
Yes.
So, for example, Devon's might be called Melania, for example, as some people are. No, I'm serious.
Yes.
And it would be.
We should name it.
So it would be a new city as such. How would that new city relate, under your guys' thoughts, to the existing abutting city, for example? John, you first, and then the Congressman.
Yeah, I mean, I want to actually correct a little bit. And,
what I make wrong?
I don't think it has to be a new city.
Oh.
I think if you think of what a city does, it brings people together, provides a bunch of public services. Those public services only make sense if you're big enough. And if you take a Devon's, it may not be big enough to support its own school district, its own fire department, its own police department. So maybe what they've done in the Woodlands in Texas, which is a property like this, is they essentially rent the public services from nearby cities.
We'll take the good, but we won't take the bad.
Well, no, but we'll pay you for it. Because the other thing Jake didn't mention, when we build all those new apartments, even if they're affordable, that's still a lot of property tax revenue. Mm-hmm. You take that property tax revenue, you use it to say to the nearby towns, we want to use these public services, we want to pay you for them. The alternative is to go ahead and make a new city. I'm not opposed to that at all, but we have to remember that only makes it if it's big enough to really be stand on its own 2 feet.
Are there any examples of this anywhere?
So
in the world? Wait, just one. Any examples of this before we get to the
Yeah, the Woodlands in Texas does
Woodlands.
this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I was going to add, actually, Weymouth Naval Air Station is an example of what John is describing, where they are building on what was once federal, now state land, but in a way that is sort of in collaboration with the abutting 3 towns. I actually think to scale it beyond, I think 7,000 units where they're at with Weymouth Naval Air Station to like 100,000 units, you got to make it its own city, though.
You're not old enough to remember Gary Bello from Harvard Law School, are you? Okay. I was a legal services lawyer a century ago, and Gary Bello was at Harvard Law School and created something called the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau that everybody in America said this is the greatest thing that ever happened. And Gary and I occasionally, I was president of the union, and we would occasionally do debates, and while it was a wonderful program he created, and I said to him, unless what you do when you create something new has replicable features that we can use to make sure our cities don't disappear, the value of what you did is somewhat limited. So I guess the long-winded question, let's start with you, Congressman. Are there lessons from this that could be taken, assuming we have these, quote, new cities, that could then be transferred to existing cities or no?
And I'll give my least popular answer.
Oh, great.
I think every politician should have at least one very unpopular idea. And mine is, I think cities afford way too much space and latitude to cars. I think people-centric, walkable cities are much better, one, for small businesses, for civic cohesion, for public health, environmental wellness. But it's very, very hard to make that transition. I mean, we've seen what's happened in Boston over the fights over outside dining, for example, right? I think this new city should start with the premise of car-free zones, pedestrian-only areas. Because wherever you build areas where only people can be, you see tremendous flourishing of community. And I think a lot of other cities would start looking over their shoulder and saying, we want some of that.
Josh Kraft just called and said after he runs against who he's running against you, Congressman. We're talking to Congressman Jake Auchincloss and the head of the economics department at MIT. That would be Jon Gruber.
I'm going to be the negative Nelly here, which I'm usually not. So I'm going to keep. Okay. So one of the other challenges, and this one we've talked about many different arenas, is so many lawmakers are own property and are landlords. And so many people, the biggest investment you're going to make in your life is your home, and you want to make sure that that value stays. We all know we want people to stay in Massachusetts, we want people to live here, and those two things seem to be in conflict. How do you, Congressman, talk to lawmakers, many of whom this is a profit place for them, a profit revenue center for them? How do you talk them into saying, yes, we need to add more of these affordable homes, these homes that we don't want real estate people to come and flip. We want it to be a place where people live. How do you get through to them on that?
Well, I think most lawmakers in the state understand I do use the term existential threat of housing prices to Massachusetts, and they want to respond to it. And I would also point out that because of a term that John and I use, the agglomeration effects, which is to say when you have more people together, actually more value gets created, that this concept that building something new in Massachusetts is a zero-sum game, that it takes away from other people, is actually cuts across the grain of everything we know about urban economics. That in fact, when we build something new next to Boston, what's going to happen is now we're going to have even more smart people working on curing cancer or developing fission power or fusion power, and it's actually going to create more value for the economy.
And this is really important. You know, I'm always on plugging my book, Jumpstarting America, with Simon Johnson. And one thing we talk about is agglomeration economies, and importantly, the jobs. You know, despite we all thought things would be shaken after COVID, they're not. The jobs are all still in the same places on the coast. And while I'd like to spread more jobs around the country, we also need to grow those places on the coast so we can continue to have a middle class in the city.
You know, Congressman, the governor's here every month, and there's never a month where she doesn't say what she cares about most is affordability, and the subhead under affordability is housing, and she did this housing bond bill. Have you talked to her about this notion?
I talk to the governor frequently, and she and I share a commitment to housing affordability.
Have you talked to her about this proposal?
I don't share our personal conversations.
Does that mean no?
What I raise, but
why would you not? This is not like a personal conversation.
No,
it's a policy.
We got wide-ranging conversations that I have with the governor, and I don't want to put her on the spot. What I know is that she cares. She and the lieutenant governor care deeply about housing affordability, and I would encourage them to put this tool in their toolbox.
Okay, so one last thing about that. Could this be done as a pilot? I mean, while it's bold, it's also scary, I'm sure, to some people on Beacon Hill and maybe some investors. Could you, Jon Gruber, and you, the congressman, pick one piece of land like the one that you, Sue, and the congressman were talking about and try to implement this thing here, and then if it works, replicate it elsewhere? Or has it got to be on a grander scale?
That's exactly the idea. But that piece of land has to be large.
Yes.
Okay. You can't do it in a block. You need at a minimum a Concord prison size, but ideally a Devon size area. And that's the idea. Look, we understand this is a new idea. We want to try, we want to learn from it. So the idea is experimentation. The idea is to do this and to learn from it. And I want to highlight one other feature I didn't mention because it comes to Sue's affordability point, which is another great idea of the Congress, and I think we emphasize in this article, which is we also need to change the way we build those houses. Jake has this great saying about the fact we don't build a car by having someone come and put on the wheels, then leave, then someone else come and add the steering wheel, like we build a house. We build a car in a factory and ship it to you. Pre-built housing has the chance to really change housing affordability, but it's a market that really needs a jump start. Right. And I think that's another piece of this. But that only works if you have a large. So the answer, Jim, is yes, but you need one example, but it needs to be a large example.
You know, when you mentioned the Woodlands, I was trying to say to myself, why do I know this? Every time your former colleague, Adam Kinzinger, a Republican on the January 6th committee, calls into CNN or zooms in, he's from the Woodlands. He's in the Woodlands in Texas, so I assume he lives east from Illinois part-time. If the Woodlands is the example, you said it, and then you were nodding in agreement, and it's such a good idea, why hasn't that been copied before you guys wrote your piece, Congressman?
So we are starting to see this at Weymouth Naval Air Station in Massachusetts.
Okay.
We are seeing proposals actually on the other side of the aisle in Washington about developing cities on federal land, which is different than the state land proposal that John, but obviously very close cousin of it. So this is an idea that is, I would say, more than just a passing spark. It's something that actually has sustained interest. But the good news is Washington doesn't have to take the lead on this. There's a reason that John and I wrote this in the states forum. This is a call to action to state legislatures because it's the state houses that can make this work.
Have you talked to the governor about this? Did I ask you that? I can't remember.
What's on Callie Crossley's show on Sunday? Do you remember?
No, they missed that. They missed that part.
Not the congressman.
You know, we were going to bring up a lot of other things about Congress, but I don't want to detract. This is a wonderful idea, and I think it's. You come back sometime soon, Congressman, and we'll talk about your job and what you're doing. Is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Fair enough.
I didn't even get to work Peter Thiel into this, so I'm excited about that in Prospera. You know?
So you go to statesforum.org to read the whole proposal, right? Is that it?
The whole article, that's right.
John, Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for your time.
Good to be here as always.
Thanks.
Okay, we've been talking to Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss and MIT economist Jon Gruber. Coming up after this quick break, we are ending the week with you, and we're opening up our phone and text lines for conversation about summer burgers. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Margery Eagan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a group of Harvard alum want the school to follow Columbia's lead and strike a deal with the Trump administration. Some Market Basket customers are weighing a boycott to support the chain's suspended CEO. And this week's Joy Beat, a Quincy dance studio that hosts a program that helps kids with special needs dance, connect, and shine. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Chevalier Theater, presenting stand-up comedian Wanda Sykes, returning to Boston on her Please and Thank You tour. Sunday, October 12th. Tickets and information are available at chevaliertheater.com. And Maine Maritime Museum in Bath, offering Burnt Island Lighthouse adventure cruises. Visitors can explore a historic lighthouse on a pristine island off the coast of Maine. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell for NBC 10 Boston, sitting in for Margery. Margery is back on Monday. We are live at the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH. It's the end of the week. It's the end of July. Well, it's not the end of July. And it's 90 plus degrees outside. So we're spending the last 20 minutes talking about hamburgers.
I would like to buy a burger.
Play that again, please.
I would like to buy a burger.
One of my favorite lines in any movie, that would be Steve Martin. We were kind of inspired by a story about the owner of In-N-Out Burger in California, moving their headquarters from there to D.C., and another story about Mark Wahlburgers' chain cutting back on locations, another story in Eater about how extra cheesy burgers are all the rage. We're doing this because I wanted to have a burger in addition to my usual newsfeed lunch, which was great. Our number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. For the next 20 minutes, anything about hamburgers, we're game to talk about. Where is the best burger you can get in Greater Boston? Do you have secret tips for when you make one at home? And is $20 too much to pay for an absolutely spectacular hamburger at a restaurant? And in tribute to Zoe, our colleague, if you want to call in and talk about tofu burgers or some other ridiculous thing, you can do that too. The number is 877-301-8970. I know you pretty well for a long time. I have no idea. Do you eat hamburgers?
Yeah.
Like I
kept covering the Karen Reed trial for 40 days and 40 nights.
I didn't know you covered that trial.
Yeah, working 12-hour days. You can't eat in the courthouse. I lost 10 pounds. You know.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was. The first trial too. In the second trial, I lost 10 pounds, and then I had a week off after the trial, and every single day I ate a hamburger. So yes, I love it. And Jim, you and I sometimes talk over the weekend.
We do sometimes.
You have called me, and where have I been on several occasions
In
when you
the
have called me?
drive-through lane at McDonald's.
That's right,
That's
indeed.
correct.
So I love a hamburger.
Okay, so an anonymous texter asked a programming question. You're going to move from those two guys so you can talk about cheeseburgers? The answer is yes.
Yes, we are,
and we did.
They'll have cheeseburgers in the new city.
Now, can I tell you something? I want to mention a sad thing, even though I want to bring people down.
Okay.
Part of this discussion is going to be people calling and saying, this is the best cheeseburger you can buy. It's at so-and-so. The greatest cheeseburger I've ever had in my whole life, ever, was at Craigie on Main. That's the good news. The bad news is Craigie on Main closed. Tony Moss, who was the James Beard winning chef, decided to move on to other stuff. The greatest thing ever. And do you know how you got a hamburger at Craigie on Main? It wasn't served in the restaurant, only served in the bar. There were a limited number of them, and if you were lucky enough and got there early enough, you got to have one. Now, here's a question based on a story that was in the New York Times, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I never knew this till recently, or I'm not even sure I'm right, so I don't want to speak for Tony. Why were there a limited number of cheeseburgers at Craigie on Main?
Because they take a long time to make in a kitchen of that kind, of a high-end restaurant. They cost a lot of money, and the chefs really don't like them because it takes away from you ordering from the things they really want you to eat. Is that correct?
That is totally correct, according to this New York Times thing about chefs who make them because people want them but hate them. Now, do you feel guilt-ridden when you go to a good restaurant? A fairly high-end restaurant, and the prices are fairly high-end. The cheapest thing on the menu is the cheeseburger. You really want the cheeseburger, but it's a local independent restaurant, and you feel they're going to look at you like you're an a-hole if you buy the cheeseburger. Do you buy the cheeseburger?
Well, a couple of issues. First, I'm a good tipper, so that makes up for some of it.
Yeah,
That's
but they don't
important.
know that in advance.
I try to tell them that in advance. The second thing is we don't drink, so that already brings down the profit margin. I'm already a hole for them because there's no alcohol being served. And yes, I just ordered the cheeseburger.
Okay, I knew you would.
Yeah.
877-301-8970. The first texter on the subject, the best hamburger in Boston is in Texas. An anonymous texter says, after a long day of fouling on the beach, there's nothing like a good gull burger.
Yes.
So give us a call. Any tips about, I am so in a hamburger kind of mood. I'm grilling tonight with my daughter.
I'll be right over.
Say. Yeah, well, no, you won't. They're a limited number. Not that we wouldn't love to have you, by the way. And I have to say, I'm a pretty good cook and a fairly good griller. I have never made, even once, the perfect cheeseburger. And you go to a good restaurant, you know, your local whatever, with your favorite local chef and family, and they're perfect.
No,
I mean,
there's
from heaven.
You know, there's the burger you get at the beach shack, like in Provincetown, that is just really thin. It's not even really, you don't even know what it is.
There's a feel to it.
There's a feel to it, but that's how it feels when I cook burgers at home, no matter what I do. Some texter is telling us about the Worcestershire sauce and stuffing it with cheese. I can't do that. That's why I go to a restaurant and I order a hamburger, any kind of restaurant, whatever level I'm at, whether it's McDonald's or if it's the Beehive in the South End, which has a great burger.
It does.
That's what I do.
Now, Kelly in Kingston, we'll get to your calls in a second, says, best tip for a homemade burger, mix goat cheese in with your 80% lean ground beef. I'm not a goat cheese fan, but I do like cheese in a hamburger. And this is the key, only serve on a brioche bun grilled in butter. And we've talked about why the hot dogs at the New Flour are so good.
Yes.
Hot dog brioche, hot dog bun grilled in butter.
Brioche is very important. Let's go to Dan in New Hampshire. Dan, welcome to Boston Public Radio. We're talking all things burgers.
Hi, Dan.
It's my NPR voice.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys. Hi. I'm from New Hampshire, but I'm currently in the tunnel.
Oh,
I'm trying to go
so
north
sorry.
back to New
Go ahead.
Hampshire.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
My best burger is the burger that I grill on my own grill at home using venison, which I procure myself in the fall if I'm lucky, and I have been lucky lately. And then you got to do, my wife has relatives in Minnesota, so they have the Juicy Lucy, which is the cheese in the inside. You've got to take the ball of ground meat that you wouldn't normally reserve for one burger and then cut it, half it, and then make really thin patties, but they have to be really crimped together good on the edges. The cheese is going to go all over the place on the grill, but because it's venison, it has almost no fat. You don't have to cook it that long. So usually you can flip it and do both sides before the cheese comes oozing out the side.
So is venison more healthy for you because it's lower fat content, I assume?
Lower fat, higher in protein.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And the cooking is different.
I like that. You like venison?
I love venison.
I like venison.
As long as someone has gone and gotten it.
Exactly. Well, Dan will go and get it.
Dan, I'll give you my number later. Thank you.
For your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. Did you say you have a favorite hamburger place now? Cheeseburger place now?
I'm realizing as I'm also looking at the textures that almost every restaurant I eat in, if they have a good hamburger, is my favorite hamburger. So I'm a big fan. I have a hard time actually driving by a Burger King. I really like the Burger King.
You really are a Revere
I am a Revere
kid.
girl. And I got to interview Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, when he ran for
about
president.
Cheeseburgers?
Well, he's a vegetarian,
Oh,
you know.
I forgot about that.
And so
That's
we
right,
spent about 3 hours together on his bus in New Hampshire, and he talked me into getting the what's the burger that's not made out of meat? The Impossible Burger, which I got at Burger King.
Horrible.
And then I let him know that I got it, and then I never ate it again. So I'm sorry, Senator Cory Booker, that I let you down.
Anonymous texter says, how does Hamburger introduce his wife? Meet Patty. Thank you. I heard that when I was 3, but that's an excellent
Still kills.
joke. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Susan in Westford, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course.
So I go to go to Blood Farm in Groton.
Blood Farm in
I
Groton.
have them grind, and I have them grind up a sirloin steak. Then I put A1 steak sauce and dried onions that I get at Donald's Market.
Wow.
Let it sit to absorb all the moisture, and I cook it on my grill.
So you have them, you literally go in and you have them grind it for you on the spot?
I call them ahead of time. They prefer that, yes. Don't do anything you ask them to.
I love that. You state it with such certainty, too. I love that. Thank you, Susan, for your call. We really we appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is our phone number.
I also like the Five Guys. Enjoy the Five Guys. That's
Yeah.
kind of close to the Burger King experience for me. I also believe that the Five Guys in France, they really were, when Five Guys opened in France, they went crazy. This was going to be the great American meals being brought there. So if you go to I haven't been there, but if you go to the Five Guys in France, it's a very different experience than a Five Guys here in
How
the
do you
United
even
States
know
of America.
that?
Because I pay attention, Jim, obviously, to a lot of burgers. The same reason I know that the burgers they ate in Rome were when they were busy writing the laws that we follow here in Massachusetts around our seashore.
You got to be listening to the earlier part of the show, yeah.
It's a good reason to, yeah. I
Okay,
love
fine.
burgers. I love talking burgers.
877-301-8970 is the number. Tom in East Providence, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, guys, what's going on?
Good.
Burgers.
Great topic. So the first thing I want to say is Rhode Island has a great burger joint that's relatively new called There. I think it was like Food and Wine or Bon Appetit wrote them up recently as the the best burger in America or something. Me and my daughter, who are currently on our way back from Five Guys right now after day camp, really enjoy that spot. So I just wanted to put in a plug for them. And I also, I have a lot of anecdotes, but I also wanted to I used to be a professional chef for about a decade.
Oh.
And address the whole, does it bother chefs when you order a burger off a menu that has many other great options? And I really don't think it does, because the burger is like anything else that's on the menu. Chefs are proud of it. They express some creativity with the recipe, and when they make it, they're proud to put it in front of customers like any other dish. And if they weren't, then maybe you're in the wrong spot or something.
That was great. I
Well
love
said.
that.
Well said,
Tom,
Tom.
former chef, thank you very much. You want to read? They did some checking about ancient Rome. Go ahead.
Yes, according to our research team here at GBH, they did have hamburgers in ancient Rome. The hamburger was a dish called my Latin isn't that great.
Oh, yeah,
so
your
let's
Latin's
see.
good.
Isicia omnetta.
Exactly.
Omnettata.
Not really.
It was a modern-day hamburger made from minced meat, pine nuts, pepper, wine,
nuts.
and garum. Garum, which is really all they had to eat in Europe forever. I'm telling you, that garum is
That was
really,
it.
it was a killer garum. And it was published in a cookbook called Apicius.
Apicius.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't take Latin at Revere High.
Apparently
Jim.
not.
And you can still make it today. Maybe you can make it tonight when Ruby and I come over for our burgers.
Exactly.
On your
And
deck.
if we don't answer the door, just stay right there. Anonymous says, the best hamburger I've ever had in my life was at Magoni's. Came in a can. can. Now, that's not right because Margery has criticized me. Her family criticizes me because I badmouthed a fabulous restaurant that's right outside Fall River that's just reopening that I hear spectacular things about, at least the... Can I, I haven't named any places. Let me tell you a couple
I'm sorry,
places.
I didn't ask you. I was talking about me. Sorry.
Go ahead, ask me.
What are some of your favorite places to get a
appreciate you
hamburger,
asking.
Jim?
Now, a traditional cheeseburger, I don't mean traditional in a pejorative way. I mean sort of a basic, fabulous cheeseburger. Puritan. Will Gilson, who owns Puritan, was here a few weeks ago. Fabulous cheeseburger. Now, if you want an unusual cheeseburger, you won't believe if you haven't had it, May Dumplings. Irene Lee was also here recently. She makes a scallion pancake cheeseburger that is unlike anything in a scallion pancake. The damn cheeseburger, it is fabulous.
Yeah.
May Dumplings.
That sounds delicious.
Well,
actually.
thank you,
We'll
by
have
the
to
way.
try that out.
Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, this is another good question from Jamie. This is a really good question. What's your opinion of an egg on a burger? My family is into eggs, fried eggs on burgers. It's a big thing. I have to say, it's fairly hard to taste the egg.
Yeah.
And you're saying I'm spending $2 extra for a fried egg, and unless it's running down my face, you really don't taste it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm not against. I'm not
against
it in theory, but to your point, if you can't taste it, it's not really adding anything to the experience. Then I'm not really going to.
How many slices of cheese do you think you need to have to feel the whole cheese experience in the way you need to in a hamburger?
I don't like too much cheese.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I don't want cheese to be the main dish in my hamburger. I
Oh,
want my
you want the hamburger
to be my main dish. So one slice of cheese. I'm open to all sorts of cheese. I'm cheese curious, I guess I could say. So I'm happy to have some goat cheese, blue cheese, American cheese, cheddar cheese.
Cheese
I'm all
curious.
for it.
Let's go up to Vermont, where they really know their burgers. Davita, I'm sure I pronounced your name wrong, but I meant it to be correct. Hello, Davita. How are you?
Good, and it's Davita.
Davita. Well, I should have known that. Hi, Davita. It's great to have you. What's
all right.
up? What do you got?
Well, I just wanted to say that I stopped eating meat in the 70s and created a lentil millet burger that is a favorite of myself and my family and friends. But lately, discovered this website, which the name is a little off. It's Sally's Baking Addiction. But she makes, she has a recipe for an incredible black bean burger.
Well,
so my two suggestions are, my one suggestion is check out Sally's Baking.
Sally's
but
Baking.
my recipe's a secret.
Now, before, that's not nice, but let me just say two things. I love black beans like more than you can imagine, and I love lentils more than you can imagine, but I just don't feel right about having a black bean lentil burger. I mean, it doesn't taste like a burger. It tastes like black beans and lentil, right?
Well, the lentil millet is separate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The black bean is another two different burgers.
Oh.
Is there garum in it? Is there garum? Is there garum? No, I'm kidding. It's not, you know what?
No.
Okay, where do we find the recipe again? Tell us what. Sally's what?
Sally's Baking Addiction.
Sally's Baking Addiction.
We'll take a look at it.
We're going to check
Thanks
it out.
so much.
Yeah, and I'll just say one. Yeah, let me just say one more
whatever
thing.
you want. Sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
So I despise the fact that places like Impossible Burger want to try to make a burger that's not a burger. So calling these black bean burgers, maybe I should say black bean patty
I like
or
that.
lentil millet patty.
I like that a lot.
Good point.
That's an excellent
Great,
point.
thank you. Yeah, I have a friend, a coworker who actually my boss, who's a vegetarian, doesn't like the feeling of meat. So eating the Impossible Burger doesn't really help because it's kind of like a burger but doesn't
not
add anything.
really.
I should also point out I don't eat a lot of meat.
You don't?
No, I don't. And I'm realizing as we're having this discussion, the only meat apparently I eat
Is a cheeseburger?
A cheeseburger every now and then. But we don't eat. Generally we eat chicken, we eat fish. But we don't generally eat ham or red meat, except obviously when I'm driving by a Burger King and you can see me scarfing it down or talking
Well,
to
that's
you
not really meat either.
in the drive-thru at McDonald's.
Do you remember
So there
when
you go.
Johnny Carson, about 100 years ago, was doing a monologue on The Tonight Show, for which he got sued? If you're of a certain age, the golden arches at McDonald's, on the sign it used to say how many hamburgers they'd sold, and it would be like 50 billion, 100 billion. And Johnny Carson's routine one night, which is on YouTube, I actually happened to see it, I don't know why, a couple of weeks ago, he says, you just go to the McDonald's, they just sold their 100 billion hamburger. He says, wow. He says, that's got to be at least a quarter pound of meat. and the meat industry sued him. I don't know what the outcome was. The meat industry also sued. What did Oprah say? What'd she do?
I forget what Oprah said,
We don't
but
know
they
what she
sued
said.
her as well. And,
Here's an anonymous texter. Disagrees completely with the brioche bun. I prefer a sesame seed or potato bun. I do not. A king-size English muffin. That is a good choice, by the way. All must be lightly buttered on the inside, then grilled face down. Condiments and garnishes, again, are all your own favorites. A toasted English muffin with a cheeseburger slipped in there is a real good experience.
I will also say that I do make a couple of exceptions for a turkey burger.
Yeah. Well, is that not really a meat thing?
No, it isn't, but I do enjoy a turkey burger.
You do?
And you know where it's from one of Jim's favorite restaurants.
Why are you telling this to Jamie? What is he?
Because I know Jamie's going to laugh, and I want to get the laugh because you're not going to laugh.
Yeah.
From the Cheesecake Factory.
I'm not going to laugh.
I love the turkey burger from the Cheesecake Factory.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're not embarrassed to admit that?
No, I'm saying it I'm right here. I'm
On
hoping people will
public
call
radio,
in and
it's
donate and keep
incredible.
us going so you can get this incredible
Okay.
coverage on a regular basis.
Do you find the portions a little large at the
Well, we
Cheesecake
eat for 5
Factory?
weeks after. Ruby and I go, we order a couple of appetizers, a meal, and then, we're good for 7 days. It's all good.
Joe in the hometown of the missing Margery Eagan. She's returning Monday in Fall River. Welcome to the show. Hi, Joe.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course.
Listen, I'm at a burger place right now. It's in Somerset, Massachusetts. It's called T&T Burgers. They've got an amazing selection of handcrafted burgers. They've got amazing fries. It's a must-stop, a must-try in this area. And then one of my other favorite places is in New York, Soho. It's a place called Cafe Habana. I think the burgers are so great there because they haven't cleaned the grill in about a decade.
Hey, so Joe, why are T&Ts? I'm not going to go to New York that soon, but I might be in Somerset. Why are they so great there?
Well, because they've got a great staff here and they've got a great culinary design for their burgers. I mean, the assortment is incredible. I can't go through the entire litany.
Do you own this joint? Be honest.
No, I don't. But
Okay.
I'm sitting here with the owner right now, and we're chatting. And,
put the owner on the phone.
Shout out.
Put the owner on the phone.
We got some questions for him.
He doesn't want to chat.
All right. We're promoting T&T Burger. What's wrong with him?
He's being demure. He's
demure.
Okay, well, say hi to him.
Listen, can I close with the Golden Boy? The Golden Boy is the most expensive burger on earth. It's $4,500. It's made in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It's got Wagyu beef, king crab, caviar, and a gold leaf covered bun.
I read about a gold leaf kind of thing. We're going to check that out. Joe, thank you very much for promoting T&T Burger, even though the owner doesn't want to promote T&T Burger.
We haven't
Thank
talked
you.
a lot about the French fries. I noticed that people are not. That's like they're just totally focused on the burger. The next Friday's show, Jamie said, it's the French fries are just sort
Can
of.
I tell you something? I had an experience the other day that I'd like to share with you that I was gonna save, but now I know people are gonna say it took you this many years to realize this. I got French fries from, I'm not gonna say from where, the other night in Inman Square. They have fabulous French fries. I forgot to go home for an hour. I mean, that sounds ridiculous. I didn't say I forgot. I didn't forget to. Let me start over again.
What's on Callie's show on Sunday?
I bought cheeseburgers with fries from this place.
Yeah.
The fries are fabulous when they're fresh from the place. I had a few errands to do. By the time I got home, they were soggy city.
Of course.
Now, ordinarily, when I have soggy fries at home, you know what I do? I toss them. I mean, it's a hopeless. Occasionally, put them in the microwave. They're even soggier. I looked it up, and I know everybody here is going to say, I've been doing this for 30 years. Where you been, Jim? I put a pan with aluminum foil with you're laughing at me too, with fries in the oven. I put it there for 4 minutes. They crisped up like they were brand new.
Have you ever had frozen fries, Jim?
No.
Well, that's what happens. They're frozen immediately, and then you put them in the oven, and the moisture comes out of them.
So you knew this before?
Yeah, that's how you get the moisture out of them. Also, when you get fries,
when you get them,
you keep the top open so the moisture can come out. The heat does reduce, but it does keep them a little bit crisper, so you can re-crisp them as soon as you get there.
So it's nothing new.
It's not new, Jim.
Now Jamie writes,
actually in Rome, they would do it in the
air fryer.
In the air fryer.
Yeah. By the way, Jamie said get an air fryer. I don't get new
I can't do that.
things. You know why? Because you use them once and you never use them again. I had an ice cream maker. I had a bread maker.
The slow cooker. Remember those?
I use a slow cooker almost once a week.
There you go.
Crock pot. I do. I made chicken marsala over the weekend. It was fabulous.
He's such a good cook.
I did.
He really
It was
is.
really
I know,
good.
I know.
Let's go to Greg in Charlestown. We're a little bit off subject. It's Sue's fault. Hi, Greg. How are you? Hi, Greg. Say something.
Great, guys.
Hi, we're good. We're glad you called.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Great topic for a Friday in
I think so.
Boston.
It's not deep, but it's good. Go ahead.
In-N-Out's moving to D.C., home of Five Guys.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
And I was recently in California in business. I got to go into an In-N-Out burger. And their secret is the grilled bun.
Yeah.
And here I am going to Five Guys around here. And I'm like, if they could just grill their buns, it'd be so much better.
I'm so with you. So totally with you. Are you a big In-N-Out burger fan?
Yeah, well, when I go there, I got to do it. It's a treat, a rare thing.
What's the thing called what's the secret thing everybody loves? What's that called? Beast burger?
No, I don't know. I just get the cheeseburger. I get the number 2.
Okay, fine.
Number 2.
All right, Greg, do you have something else you wanted to say? And I interrupted you. Animal style.
Yeah,
Thank you, Aiden. Thank you. What?
Yeah, what they don't do is they don't use peanut oil, and that's Five Guys' secret.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
well,
for their fries,
we
for
got
their
it.
burgers,
Okay.
everything. So anyway, thanks so much.
He said it's their secret, and Zoe said, no, not anymore.
It's not your secret anymore.
Now, by the way, In-N-Out Burger, I have a problem with it. We were supposed to discuss this with Callie. We never got to it.
Well, she's back. We
The
can ask her
owner
what's
of
on her
In-N-Out
show on
Burger,
Sunday.
hi, Callie, how are you? The In-N-Out Burger corporate headquarters is about to move to Tennessee. And the reason it's moving to Tennessee is because the owner of the company says it's hard to make money here. And as numerous commenters said in the story, this woman has made not millions, billions of dollars in California, but it's too hard to do business here. So she's going to move her damn headquarters out of the state that's made her a zillionaire and move to Tennessee. What do you think of that?
Right, and then I think today there's a story that
I
she's
know
want to
stories.
be clear that she's not moving the headquarters right now.
Well, 'cause she's taking so much
moving
crap.
to the East Coast, and they want to expand operations further on the East Coast, and it's a better move for her family. So please don't stop buying her burgers because she'll run out of money because she's a zillionaire and she didn't want to get people mad at her. So
Exactly.
There you go. Okay.
Christian, you're on the South Shore. I think you're going to wrap things up pretty much. Hi there. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
And to you.
I just wanted to let you know, as a former chef,
Yeah.
you can dress a pig up in a prom dress, but at the end of the day, she's still a pig.
Beautiful.
The trick with a burger is all about the meat.
And what should be the first choice?
Multiple cuts of meat. If you want a nice beefy burger, throw some chuck in there. Throw some short rib.
Short ribs is great.
Possibly some sirloin. If you go to any of your supermarkets or any of your meat counters, you can pick your chops of meat, give them to the guy, and he'll grind them up for you on the spot.
Christian, that was a huge help. And I have to say the best cheeseburgers I've probably ever had are exactly what he said. A mix of meats, including whatever he said, that rib thing, kind of.
It's great. There's so much you can do to it, or you can just go buy one.
Okay.
That's just what I
So
want.
joining us is Jared Bowden. Jared, do you happen to know what Callie's doing on her show Sunday night, or no? Do you know?
I think you asked her about 4 or 5 times
Oh,
earlier.
so, okay, well,
You don't
I
know.
forgot.
So you don't know.
Okay.
See, maybe he didn't say it enough. You don't know.
You probably don't eat, look at you. You don't eat cheeseburgers, right?
You know, I had a really good one the other night at Aquitaine.
You did?
Oh, that's a good one, too.
Aquitaine's
The
good, yeah,
Aquitaine's
that's
a
It
good
wasn't
one.
on the menu,
Yeah.
and I was just sitting at the bar with a friend. I thought I wanted.
In Chestnut Hill you're talking
No,
about?
the one here in the South
Oh,
End.
okay.
And it's always so good to just sit at the bar and have a burger. And so I asked for one, and it was really, really delicious.
Really?
Yeah.
How many cheeseburgers have you had in the last 2 months? One.
Half of
Oh,
one.
Half. I cut my burger in half, and I
Oh, I
eat
do
it.
too.
Do you do that?
I do
Do you
too,
eat
yeah.
it with a fork at all?
Well, at the end sometimes.
Sometimes
because
you
it all
have to.
falls
Yeah,
apart.
okay.
I really don't like that.
The good ones fall apart.
The cutting in half I like.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
have
like
to.
the notion that you use with.
So then you just dive into all the little bits that are all
Did
over
de
the place.
Blasio eat pizza when
Yes.
he's running with a knife and fork?
Yes.
He did, and he still got elected.
Well, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we play Steve Martin one more time? Just get me out of here in a good mood.
I love this
Do we
one.
have it? No.
I would like to
Toi,
buy a hamburger.
Hamburger.
Maybe we should stop.
We don't quit. We do not quit. Again.
I would like to buy a hamburger.
I would like to buy a
This is Steve, Inspector Clouseau, is that who he was?
Yes,
and he's trying to learn, he wants to infiltrate, so he has to pretend he's American, and he's trying to learn to speak like an American. And it's one of the funniest scenes.
That
like,
is why we are here.
Okay.
I will
I'd
pay
like
you
to buy a hamburger.
so much money if you come with me to Aquitaine and you order your hamburger just like
that.
Steve Martin. And you have to scream it just like Steve
I like
Martin.
it. What are you doing on the show there, Jared?
We're going to speak about Coldplay Gate because this is the story that never ends.
What's
More
the
and
latest?
more suds in this soap opera. Well, now the chief people officer
she quit too, yeah.
has stepped down, and the OnlyFans connection. And
What OnlyFans?
She's on OnlyFans?
I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to
Oh
tune
my
into
God.
I've
the
always
culture.
wanted an OnlyFans.
Exactly.
I French laugh at you.
Exactly.
And, I hate to talk about this, but this was such a sad week in pop culture. We lost Malcolm-Jamal Warner and Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan.
Chuck Mangione.
That was the most recent. So,
No, he was actually first.
lots of deaths.
Can I just
this
say one
week.
thing? As we said the other day, when you talk about Ozzy Osbourne, you were here. You can't not mention the Nazi stuff. And when you talk about Hulk Hogan, I mean, he's the racism. Again, it shouldn't define your whole life by that, but it shouldn't be ignored either.
Part of it.
Jared will be listening.
All right.
And that's it. Goodbye. Oh, he's come back live.
back
I
in
forgot. 2 minutes with his colleagues, including a woman who's doing a show on Sunday where she has no idea what the topics are, which is rather embarrassing, actually. It's Callie Crossley.
Yeah. All right, you're saying
Oh,
goodbye.
I have to say goodbye.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
he's looking
Thanks
at
for
me.
listening to another edition of BPR, et cetera, et cetera. Keep, forget that. Monday, retired federal judge Nancy Gardner, former Globe editor Brian McGrory, Christopher Muther, travel writer, and Michael Curry. This is important. Go to GBH News. If you're into this market basket thing, Zoe, our colleague, used to work there when she was young. She's done this fabulous report, collected everything you need to know about the 2014 and now the 2025 battle, what customers outside of the stores think, etc. You go to gbhnews.org. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Connolly, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Engineer is John LaClaw Parker. Executive producer is Jamie. Special thanks to BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cardonia. Thanks to Lennox Field. Whatever. Hey, thanks, everybody. Sue, you're fabulous.
I love you.
We'll see you again
later.
next week. Margery's back Monday. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you all for coming. Stick around for the Culture Show. See you next week. Bye.
We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. Wondering what's cooking this weekend? The better question is what's not cooking. Catch all your favorite culinary shows starting tomorrow morning with Movable Feast at 10:30 and continuing all afternoon on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, the Coldplay Kiss Cam saga continues. After a couple was caught cuddling on the Jumbotron, the internet has gone into a spasm, prompting Coldplay singer Chris Martin to issue concertgoers a cheeky warning.
We're going to use our cameras and put some of you on the big screen. So please, if you haven't done your makeup, do your makeup now.
The fallout raises questions about workplace romances, the price of bad behavior, and privacy. So how does the woman who uploaded the video that now has more than 100 million views feel?
I definitely feel for Andy's wife, Megan, his family, and everyone else who's been hurt in the process.
And knowing the consequences, would she do it again?
I'm not the only one that caught it on camera, so if it wasn't me who uploaded it, I'm sure someone else would have.
From there, it's the Great British Breakup. Netflix won't be renewing its $100 million contract with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Their productions included a niche documentary about polo.
For sure it's glamorous. It's a sexy sport too. Dirty, sweaty boys. riding.
The Netflix deal also featured Meghan Markle's lifestyle show.
We're in the pursuit of joy. Love is in the details.
Ratings are also in the details. Their productions were largely a royal flop.
Very underwhelming polo documentary, and that was as dull as ditchwater. And then you have the cooking program, which again was even duller than ditchwater.
From there, we look at the legacy of Ozzy Osbourne, the reality TV star and music's Prince of Darkness, whose band Black Sabbath massively influenced heavy metal. We also remember actor, director, and musician Malcolm-Jamal Warner, best known for his role as teenager Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show.
How do you expect to get into college with grades like this?
I'm not going to college.
Damn right.
I am going to get through high school and then get a job like regular people.
Regular people?
Yeah, you know, who work in the gas station, drive a bus, something like that.
And Hulk Hogan, the professional wrestling icon, was known for his shirt-ripping showmanship and for popularizing his theatrical sport. He has died at age 71.
I got just one question for you. When Hulkamania rises up, brother, what you gonna do? What you gonna do, brother?
We take on that and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Don't you know that bald people represent some of the greatest champions this industry's ever seen?
Welcome to the Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
I'm Lisa Simmons.
We're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with Coldplay Gate. The soapy saga continues. Last week, Andy Byron, the then CEO of data company Astronomer, was caught on Gillette Stadium's kiss cam, cuddling, not with his wife, but his subordinate, the company's chief people officer, Kristen Cabot. A concert goer captured video of the two executives panicking as they saw their embrace broadcast to 65,000 people on a giant screen. It then went viral to millions more. Fast-acting internet sleuths exposed their identities, and since then, Andy Byron has resigned from his job. Yesterday, we learned Cabot left hers, and in the latest twist, Andy Byron's wife has reportedly leaked private messages that he spent up to $40,000 to have explicit video calls with OnlyFans creator Sophie Rain. Aren't you glad you're not watching Beyond the Gates right now? Because this story is a little juicier, as we documented on the Culture Show. This is extraordinary, and there are so many angles to this, but I guess we should start with the fascination around this. It all kind of began with a question about privacy, and should this have ballooned the way it has? But this is ballooned, and not just here. I was doing an interview with somebody in Britain the other day. They were consumed by it. This is everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they were out in public. I don't care how private they thought they were. They were out in public, and you know, people know this happens all the time, but I think rarely do. Oh my God, they're on the Jumbotron. For real? You know, I mean, nobody can believe that.
I mean, the thing is that it's not like it was a dark place. I mean, you're in a stadium. There's lights. There are multiple videos and pictures of them like standing there dancing together. So for me, it's sort of like, what are you thinking? You're destroying two families now that have to go through this. I mean, but I do think it's the hunger that we have in living in the social media world that we are driven to drama. And it's a never-ending news cycle, like you said before. This keeps going on because there's so many other issues that are going to come of it.
Well, it's funny, if you think back, maybe they should have listened, Andy Byron and Kristen Cabot should have, to more Springsteen concerts, because maybe they wouldn't be in this mess. Here is the boss in 1992 giving some advice to concert goers.
If you've abandoned your wife and family in another state, or if you're here tonight with somebody that you shouldn't be, get down!
That's what they should lead with. Coldplay should lead with that, with these kiss cams.
Yeah, and of course, here's the moment when Coldplay's Chris Martin joked about Andy Byron and Chris Cabot. Of course, we didn't know their identities at that point. They're duck and cover when they were captured on the kiss cam.
Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You're okay? Oh, what? Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
And I'm sure he had no intention of exposing somebody, because who would do this? Well, what I can't get out of my head is the fact that you would do this, especially when we are now learning that one of the spouses was traveling overseas. I believe it was Cabot's husband who was traveling overseas for weeks while she's at this concert doing this cuddling. Forgetting the fact that you might end up on the kiss cam before everybody, you're also going to tens of thousands of people here in Foxborough Stadium. They all live here, and the families live here in Massachusetts.
In New England,
so you could run into your
right.
neighbors, or you could run into friends. So there was every chance that you could be outed for coming together literally at this concert.
Well, first of all, weren't they in the highfalutin box?
Yes, they were right there. So you could,
Yeah.
if you see the other pictures,
Yes.
they were the only ones often standing up together while everyone else was sitting down. So of course the kiss cam is going to come around to them.
Well, I don't know. I don't think people are thinking about that. I think that you think in a crowd of thousands, you actually can be anonymous.
Right.
I don't think people are thinking about that Jumbotron. And I would think if I'm in the VIP section, I probably know who else is in there. So I'm not worried about running into, Susie, who used to live down the street with me, from me, and knows that's not my husband.
Right.
I know.
So
I don't know.
But I think that I think it's a good reminder that we do live in this social media world, and that there is this blurred line between public and private. And when you're in public spaces, there are cameras everywhere, and you immediately, when you walk into that space, you have given up that sort of sense of privacy, right? So it's something to think about. Not that we're all going to go off and do whatever, but I do think that whether you're walking your dog and you don't pick up after it, someone's going to see that. Like it's a public space, so you have to be. I think that as a general public now, we have to be much more focused on that we are being seen.
Well, you even have to be mindful of how you're being seen within your own private life, too,
Yes,
because
that's
this is what the OnlyFans
Yes.
revelations about spending $40,000 to have communications with an OnlyFans darling reveals, is that there is a digital trail as well. So, I mean, it is a good conversation about privacy in that regard, but there is so much of our lives that are just so easily accessible, because what's also fascinating to me is how quickly this all blew up.
Oh, of course, because of social media, right.
Right, and there were times that it would take forever to identify somebody like this, and then you even think about the way the media is covering this, or that we're talking about this now on the air. Maybe there would have been a bit more discretion, but our lives have become so public. They have become such fodder for some kind of entertainment narrative, because I think we also have a cross-section with the narratives that we see on television, so it's even wilder to know that this is playing out in real life.
And the other thing is the CEO aspect of it, right? That people, for some reason, have moved to this, negative feeling and idea about CEOs, that they're paid all this, they don't work, they don't do whatever. So that I think that even drives it even further, is that you have a CEO and an HR director who knows fully.
That's the key
HR
right there.
director. This is what
Somebody
you do
said-
for a living.
That's Chief People Officer to you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Somebody said she should call herself into the office and have a conversation with herself about this is exactly the kind of scenario that she's supposed to be talking to other people about. I think really the issue is that there are cameras everywhere. We're surveyed all the time. But we become so accustomed or immune to that, we're not thinking about that. I'm telling you the truth. I would not be thinking about being on the Jumbotron if I was out there. I just wouldn't be.
Cuddling with someone you shouldn't be.
That somebody taking a video of Coldplay is going to catch you in their video or something like that?
You're standing up like that. I
don't want to give the impression that I think like a bad behavior.
Bad behavior, Jared. I do want to say one thing quickly before we go. So apparently Tesla, Netflix, and StubHub are all seizing this viral moment. So Tesla posted a picture. Posting a picture of you enjoying your loaner Tesla while yours is in the shop is equivalent to taking it to a Coldplay concert. read a post from the company on its X account. Your car will know. So everyone's just taking. There's so many memes. There's so many big brands are getting involved in it.
Well, speaking of the great imagery, if you're watching on our GBH News YouTube channel, or if you're here at the library on the monitor, you'll see. So of course there's the original Kiss Cam video, and then the Philly Fanatics at the game the other night. They had a lot of fun with this.
I love this
at the game, because Kiss Cams are everywhere. And then of course on Colbert the other night, beloved couple who are not a couple, Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, had their own moment. So yeah, people are riding high. I have to say, I did a speech the other night, and I thought about making a kiss cam joke, and I thought, oh, this is a little risky. I don't know if this is the audience for that. It was the most sustained laughter I ever got. It had nothing to do with me, but it just shows the fact that everybody
shows that it is there.
aware of this now.
Yes.
Well, from a scandalized couple, we move on to a streaming couple, or a lot less streaming. They also a lot less royal. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Reports this week indicate Netflix will not renew its $100 million contract with them. Of course, that was huge news when they decided that they would move away from their royal positions and establish a new life by moving to California, and they would be a big media couple. And they came out with a bang as we saw their story, the documentary of their story. People were very interested in their lives in that moment and what had happened within the royal family, what had happened to provoke them and move them to California. But after that, interest seemed to go downhill.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think everybody was interested in their personal story, period. And I'm not certain that anything else that they would produce would have the same kind of energy or interest that other folks had, unless they were supremely talented or had some special thing. Now, I think if he had done because he did it later, I think they did something about the Gladiator. What's the charity that he's
charity they had?
And he did the film Invictus.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, I wonder if after the personal thing, they'd come right out with that. That might have sustained them because he's so associated with that. But then you start doing, Meghan, love Meghan. I mean, you got a whole network with Joanna Gaines doing everything,
and Martha Stewart and everybody.
Everybody. Why am I looking at you?
But I feel like there is room for that. I do think that you're right. They sort of like lost their luster. I think there were a lot of things. I think like Oprah sort of turned, and other people started to be like, this isn't authentic, and maybe this is something. Like you're working really, really hard at this. But Netflix. I mean, they did say that it was. That they both made this decision, that they're not canceling it, they're just not renewing it for 2025. With Love, Meghan still goes on to a second season next year.
Because they've already taped
it. But I also think that this is a shift, and I think in our next story we'll talk about this, there is a shift from Netflix moving away from these celebrity-driven stories. They're big money, they take a lot of time and attention, and I do think that Netflix is sort of like shifting their strategy, especially when you look at someone like Apple, who's coming out of the gate incredibly successful. I mean, they have a lot of competition out there.
Well, I think it's also, we know this from television, and especially if it's host or personality-driven television, you want to find your way into somebody who is accessible, especially if they're in their home or purported home. Meghan Markle didn't actually film in her home. It was an adjacent home, she said, for privacy issues. But if they're in their home coming to your home, you want to feel a connection. And I'm sorry, but if you're a royal, and we understand the wealth at your disposal, the trappings at your disposal, and you think that you can just conjure that up and suddenly a relationship is born, then that doesn't necessarily happen. Look how long it takes to develop a relationship with a television personality. Joanna Gaines, I mean, they started and they climbed and climbed and climbed. We've talked about this before. Martha Stewart may be a different example because she's in my mind, she's got a whole other sort of charm, and that she's not charming completely.
Yes.
But I think they banked on that they would have this built-in fandom that just isn't there.
And Americans don't necessarily have that fandom. I mean, they had the fandom with the Queen, right? And I think the whole royal world is changing. I think that the way people interact with the royals now and how they hold them to such esteem and whatever is completely changed as well. So I think that's part of that, don't you think?
Well, I think that if they had given more of themselves, I think the issue is we didn't really know them. Yeah. And I'm not, and we should know. We don't know all the other people who have shows like this, but we have a sense that we know them more. I mean, they talk about a lot of stuff in their lives that make it possible for us to connect. That's not something she was doing, or they certainly want. If you do a show about polo, I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not what we're interested in. But it doesn't mean. I think it's really about the choice of the project and how it matches to your personality. I always go back to Jennifer Hudson on these things because, she really, her strength is just that she's a nice person.
Yes.
And they have built on that.
Yep.
And you got to know where your connection
But maybe
is
there's
with
a
the
problem
audience.
then. Maybe they can't
Well, no,
build
they
on
could-
that authenticity.
Well,
Maybe
let's
because
take
we're
a little bit of a listen. Here's a
Okay.
clip from
The
With Love,
authenticity.
Megan. Of course, this is the show where she's at home teaching us things like how to create a fruit in a rainbow shape to brighten up, a fruit cake in a rainbow shape to brighten up the everyday.
You see where our rainbow is coming together here? And you don't have to do a big platter of this. You could do this with one small row for your kids for breakfast, genuinely, and it makes the morning a lot more fun. It's a real delight in being able to be a present parent, and it's a luxury sometimes because we all have to work. We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds.
Okay, I watched an episode of this. I thought, when is the last time you were doing something like this? Because it just doesn't. And I understand it takes a while to be comfortable in front of the camera. Although she was on a television show, but it just didn't seem natural.
You know what? Do you know about you've probably heard about that guy who does for years did a different lunch for his kid and drew a different breakfast. Oh, he's fabulous. Give that guy a show.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because that's
know,
cool. That's like he wants to do something cool and interesting. And
it was so sweet. It's the dad and his daughter, and every day did different pancake or whatever. So, you got to, again, that doesn't feel like that's connected to her. I believe that she does it. It doesn't feel like it's coming across.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that there is another celebrity couple in a different way, the Obamas, who have been pretty successful with their production company. They've won awards for some of the serious documentaries. So it's possible to come up out of your celebrity and figure out how to make a connection and make some productions that make sense and that draw people. They just didn't have it.
I think you're right, and I think it is a whole thing about connecting to this couple, connecting to what Megan is doing, and that whole sense of authenticity, where it feels like I don't have time. People are like throwing Eggo waffles in the toaster and throwing their kids out the door. Go catch the bus. Like people don't have that time. That's a great Sunday maybe or a Saturday thing to do. So yeah, I just think that.
And maybe
I'm
they could have
hoping
acquired some stuff.
That's what I mean.
And they weren't in it.
And so
then
that's what I mean. And that's why I think the Obamas have done really well, because they're doing this really impactful work around the documentaries and the things that they're supporting.
Or even
and
the
Netflix,
fun things.
And yeah, the
like
fun
Later
things.
Daters.
Right.
That's right, Later Daters.
Well, maybe Netflix canceled their contract with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex because they're finding greater success with K-pop Demon Hunters. The animated movie is a hit, and you're hearing it right now, as are all 8 of the original songs which landed on Billboard's Hot 100. We just heard Golden, performed by the fictional K-pop girl group Huntrix, which peaked at number 4 on the Hot 100. So this is a fascinating story because you find, we were just talking about fandom, incredible fandom around not only this film and what they're doing, but also around these animated stars. And this music is all over Billboard chart, it's all over Spotify, and people can't get enough of it. And the reason I was interested, we have many things to talk about, is because I think this is the beginning of an AI merger too, because this isn't necessarily AI, but this is people logging or glomming on to fictional characters, even though they're voiced by real life people.
Well, first of all, this is a fantastic production. It's so colorful. It's so, even if you're not into animation per se, you can just get drawn in looking at it. I know the songs are popular as well. That's an addition to it. But just the production itself is so charming and interesting. And it's a part of the whole Korean wave of interest in this culture. The MFA had a really powerful exhibit that was popular called Hallyu, about the Korean wave in culture, and this is right in the center of it, and the director and the creator of this has said as much. She was trying to figure out a way to build on that, and she came up with, a K-pop girls band who are also demon hunters. Works for me.
No, I mean, I think this is pretty fascinating. I think that Netflix is really leaning into their not new, but relatively new animation arm, and I think that this is something, you're right, it's sort of like, let's look at the bottom dollar, let's see where we can make our most money, and you already have this built-in fan base. And here are these singers that are K-pop singers. They're not a band, but the band is this, you're right, animated fictional characters, and they're just blowing up everywhere as if they were a band that could go on tours. I would love to see them go on tour.
Well, and I think this is what they're trying to figure out
like how you can bring these animated characters. It's like going to Comic Comic-Con or going, like, people can dress up or, do whatever. But I do think that it's very unique. You've got this storytelling, real music, and then you've got these virtual folks. And I think you're right. I think they are leaning into something that's going to bring them above sort of everyone else in this streaming market. And it, like I said before, it's incredibly competitive, and they're going to need something to sort of bring them to that space.
Well, the template is the Gorillaz, a virtual band which has toured, but I really think that Netflix is going to love this economic model too, because here you have a group of animated characters, again, voiced by real people, but people don't know, the fans don't know who necessarily the real voices are. Certainly they're credited, but they're not going to have the stardom if you had hired people to play each of the demon hunters and the girl band and the boy band in all of this. And so now these animated people can kind of live on forever, just as AI can live on forever. I really think that this is a kind of an inflection point as we look at the response to this film. But as you say, Kelly, it's also a really well-made film, and it's also interesting to go back to what you were talking about in Hallyu and Korea, South Korea, investing in culture as a great economic engine for their country, and as an exporter. They realized that they were stagnating a bit, and they needed to do something that was going to change this, and this is clearly it.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, no, it's a very smart thing. And here's what could happen on the backside. They could find real people, like the old Making the Band shows, make a band out of the
people that are
and just do a whole other thing.
Right.
More money.
It's all about the money.
Yeah.
Well, coming up, now that the U.S. will once again withdraw from UNESCO, what does that mean for the fate of our heritage sites? That conversation is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a group of Harvard alum want the school to follow Columbia's lead and strike a deal with the Trump administration. Some Market Basket customers are weighing a boycott to support the chain's suspended CEO. And this week's Joy Beat, a Quincy dance studio that hosts a program that helps kids with special needs dance, connect, and shine. It's all starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Museum of Science, presenting the new exhibit, Perception Playground, which explores how your brain shapes your understanding of reality. Tickets at mos.org. And Subaru of New England. You can explore New England in the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Forester Hybrid. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, dreams delivered, with custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. She's the artistic and executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival and program manager at Mass Cultural Council. If you're just tuning in, we're going over the latest arts and culture headlines. Among them, UNESCO released its 2025 list of World Heritage Sites this week, which includes storybook Bavarian castles in Germany and ancient rock carvings in South Korea. So if people don't know, UNESCO UNESCO is an extension of the United Nations. This is a program that is all about science and the preservation of culture, and definitely sites around the world that have immense historical or cultural significance. And they have a big budget to go in and help with the preservation of those places and to maintain those places. So not unlike the World Monuments Fund, which we talked about earlier this year, which preserves things like the lighthouses of Maine. It's kind of fun to see what they put on their list each year because they become cultural markers that, of course, everybody wants to visit on their vacations. And as we mentioned, there are 26 new sites. Each of
known as the Getty Ruins. This is in Kenya, and it's inward in Kenya, not near the coast, which makes it a mystery of some sort. It's been there since 12th, 16th centuries, back in those days, and they couldn't figure out why it was, how it became, rather, a trade center. But they know that it was. Why? Because they found Venetian beads. They found Ming Dynasty vases. They found Spanish scissors. So they were trading with all of these countries, but it's so far in, and it wasn't a good port even when you got to where the water was, but obviously it happened. Here's the other mystery. There is nothing written that they can find except in the 20th century. Now, in the 1920s, the British sort of discovered the site, and that people were like, oh, okay. But, you know, the kind of information you'd want to have from the folks that were trading or the people that built the space, all of that does, so far, not exist. So it's a real mystery. I'm just dying to go. Please take a look at it. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I mean, it's really quite complicated. So imagine all of that space with all the traders from around really the globe.
And it's not near the water. It's not near the ocean.
No.
So people, this
So
was a marketplace. You had to trek in.
Yeah.
So wow, that's very...
It's a mystery, so I would love to see this.
Well, and I would love to see that and Lisa's. I was privy to what the one you want to talk about.
Oh, the
Speaking of
Bavarian's
beautiful.
fairy tale. I mean, this was the big news story, is that these castles are now added to the UNESCO Heritage List. And, you know, this is King Ludwig II, right, who actually built all of these palaces. He was, you know, they call him Europe's most fascinating and mysterious monarch. He became king when he was 18 after his father died. And then he was very much of an introvert, very much into art and mythology and kings, and knights and all these, you know, he just loved this whole world. And so he basically built these castles so that, you know, he could live out this sort of like fantasy life.
And I'll just interrupt for a moment to tell people that we're seeing it again on our GBH News YouTube channel. And for people here at the library, it's up on our monitors right now. This is very Disney-esque, and I think that's a little bit not coincidence, right?
No, it's not coincidence. Disney did model their castle after this castle here. So this is, I think, the Neuschwanstein Castle. I practiced that.
Yeah, very impressive.
And it's what's interesting too. He was obsessed with this composer Richard Wagner. So he had all of these things that were in Richard Wagner. So anyway, very interesting. He isolated himself from reality. They called him a mad king. They sent him away, and then to some sort of home or whatever, and then he was found like 3 days later dead with his psychiatrist. So very strange. But then all of a sudden, after all of this came about, and these castles, people were like, he's a genius. Oh my gosh, he's amazing. So now I think they're very excited to have these on the UNESCO Heritage List. And yes, I think people, it's like one of the #1 tourist attractions also.
And one of the ones that I thought was really intriguing, and again, we'll point people to our GBH News YouTube channel and for images, but the imperial tombs in north central China, these date back to 1038 to 1227. And these were 9 mausoleums, including 32 underground flood control systems, which I think is really fascinating as we're looking at flood mitigation efforts, especially here in the city of Boston. They were doing it back in the early 1000s, but this was also a key in the Silk Road distribution center, and it just looks gorgeous, and especially in that central northern part of China where you have these mountains and sands. So we see the all-encompassing view that UNESCO has as they're surveying the world and taking this all in and adding to this. But there is a development here. Because it's not just a coincidence that there are no U.S. sites on this year's list, because you can now take the U.S. out of UNESCO. This week, the Trump administration announced it's pulling the United States out of the organization for a second time, stating that UNESCO is out of step with the, quote, common sense policies that Americans voted for in November. So one of the things that the Trump administration is talking about is their intention to promote gender equality, clean energy. These are goals that are being developed to fight poverty. All UNESCO sites are entwined with some of these programs, because in addition to these sites, we're talking about community centers and schools. So the U.S. no longer wants to fund. What's really interesting, though, is that UNESCO saw this coming. They had already begun to wean themselves off of the millions of dollars that they had previously counted on from the U.S.
Also, the acceptance of Palestine as a did not sit well with the Trump administration either, and some other folks as well. But, you know, the work that they have done, I mean, this is just one part. We should mention this is just one part of their whole existence. They have other things that they do. But recognizing these sites and supporting them, because it does drive tourist traffic there and even local support, is really amazing. I get so excited when I get to go to a UNESCO site.
Right. I mean, and I think that that's a big part of it. I think one of the biggest part of it, too, when you talk about Palestine and Gaza, is one of the reasons to get, you know, designated as this is because they preserve that in wartime, right? So they talk a lot about all the things that have gotten, had been, completely and totally gutted in Gaza, and I think that was a problem too, right? So here, but this isn't the first time that he's pulled out of UNESCO. He did it his
first. And it's not just Republicans
And it's not just Republicans either, right. So, and Reagan did it as well.
The Obama administration too.
Obama administration stopped giving them funding. So I think it's controversial. I think it's really important. I think it's important for tourism, but I also think it's important as we live in this global world and where there's constantly friction and conflict, that things do need to be preserved. And there needs to be somebody that's going to be there to step up to be like, whoa, wait a second, there's a site there. We need to make sure we preserve that. So, I mean, it's an incredibly important organization.
It's also a very varied list, because in the United States, some of the UNESCO sites include the Statue of Liberty, the Grand Canyon, the Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. So those homes definitely need support. Maybe the Statue of Liberty, not as much. Well, so it's a wide array. But I think it is important to mention that, yes, we saw Reagan do it. The Reagan administration had its reasons, and they thought that UNESCO was too pro-Soviet at that point. The Obama administration did it because of funding to Palestine that UNESCO was doing. And now the Trump administration, for the second time, because he did it in his first time, is also pulling this. I think a lot of organizations are also going to follow this model. What did UNESCO do in order to get themselves financially independent from the United States? Because so many other organizations, we're talking on behalf of one of them or on one of them right now, PBS and NPR, need to figure out how to be financially independent.
Right.
Well, coming up, major losses this week in pop culture. We'll reflect on the legacies of actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, heavy metal icon Ozzy Osbourne, and the man behind Hulkmania, Hulk Hogan. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In the 1980s, South African bass player Bakiti Khumalo had global aspirations.
I'm a sideman and I'm a bass player, and I want to go distance. I don't want to just be a South African bass player. And Paul came through.
Paul, as in Paul Simon, playing on the album Graceland, made Khumalo's dream a reality. Hear that conversation next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And 30 Tigers, presenting Crown of Roses, the new album from Patty Griffin. Available now on all music streaming services and at local record stores. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org. And the Trustees. From hiking in the Berkshires to paddling on Martha's Vineyard, the Trustees is dedicated to providing ways for the public to connect in nature. Learn more at thetrustees.org.
Breaking news, deep conversations, and the stories that matter to you. GBH News, always on the radio at 89.7, available on the GBH News YouTube channel and online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jared Bowen. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Culture Show contributor Lisa Simmons. We're going over the big stories of the week, which includes the loss of 3 major pop culture figures. We start with actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, best known for his role, I know, as teenager Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. He died this week in a horrible drowning accident at age 54. Here's a scene from the pilot episode of The Cosby Show in which Father Cliff Huxtable, played by Bill Cosby, confronts his son Theo, played by Malcolm-Jamal Warner, about his unflattering report card.
I'm not going to college. I am going to get through high school and then get a job like regular people.
Regular people?
Yeah, you know, who work in the gas station.
You graduate from high school. Let's say you just slide by. $300 a week, $1,200 a month. All right?
Great, I'll take it.
Yes, you will. And I will take $350 for taxes.
Whoa!
Huh? Yeah. Now, because, see, the government comes for the regular people first.
So, I mean, this is the beauty of somebody like Malcolm-Jamal Warner and The Cosby Show in and of itself, is that we'll each have a different entry point into it. Mine was that I was pretty young when I was watching The Cosby Show, so to me, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was the sometimes annoying older brother who was getting a lot of attention, but I paid attention to how he was interacting with his parents and how he was moving forward in his life as a young kid might his older brother.
Well, for me, similar thoughts, but also just him as a part of this family, which I knew many, many examples of in my life, but had never seen on TV in that way and with that kind of platform. And that the writing was so good and the acting was so good and he was so good from the beginning. So he actually, stood out in that way. I am also reminded of thinking about his death in the way that we talked about Matthew Perry's death with its connection to Friends, but the platform was bigger than he was, though he had talent. The same thing with Malcolm-Jamal Warner. That platform of Cosby turned out to be huge, global hit, and yet, he has also that connection with him. Some other one poignant thing that I discovered in reading about the last show of the season. And the first one, you hear him say, I'm not going to college. The last show, he graduates from college, not of the season, of the whole show. And at the time, Cosby was quoted, he was 54 years old. And that's how old Malcolm-Jamal Warner was when he died in that horrible accident.
Yeah.
So that just really, it's just really emotional and sad, so sad to me.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I watch the Cosby Show all the time. I mean, it was that show, you're right, that sort of like gave a different slice of life of what mainstream media was putting on about black families. And some people had criticism about it, like, this isn't real. Black people don't live like that. And it's like, no, we don't live in a monolith, right? That there's this whole other life for other people. And I just feel like it was a beautiful family, him being the only boy. And I think he was such a representation of a young black teenager, male teenager at a time when things were so, we weren't seeing that. And I think that he lived his life like that. I think that, he being on that show, I don't know whether it was him, coming into it like that or just learning from that, being with these, this family for, upwards of 84, 92, almost 10 years. And then went on to live his life to support, young black men and women, and being very supportive of black women as a poet, as an activist, and really living out his life. And there's this one quote I heard him say. He said, I have had such an awesome life. I have had my ups and downs and all of that. But if I died tomorrow, I know I would go with a smile on my face. I know I haven't wronged anybody. I have peace of mind. And for me, you can't put a price on that. And I thought that was very poignant and very much of who he was as a person. Even though we didn't see him a lot, he was in bits and pieces of other things.
Well, I think exactly what you're talking about with the family nature of that show and seemingly how they came together as a cohesive unit helped, because we think of so many people, so many young actors who enter into this field and then it destroys them. There's drug use, or they can't there's nobody to help them through the fame, and there's such isolation that comes with it. That didn't seem to happen. I actually had a chance to sit down with him. He was here in Boston to star in the Huntington Theater Company's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, an adaptation of that. And this was about, I think, 2014, and it was a very poignant time to do that, because I remember asking why redo this movie from 1967. Of course, the original was Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. And his answer was, well, there is so much more to explore that film left off 40 years ago. But I also had a chance to talk to him on Open Studio about this move towards acceptance that he felt he had to have.
You still feel that you need to have some acceptance, or?
I think I'm finally at a point, I'll be 44 next week, and I'm finally at a point, I'd say within the last few years, where I've been able to let go, looking for approval, needing approval. And it's interesting because when you're an artist, your success, if you will, depends upon, an audience liking your art.
I have to say, he was such an extraordinarily nice person, in addition to being a talent on stage. Even I remember hanging out with him a little bit during that shoot. He just wanted to make himself available. Such a nice guy. And we saw that through the succession of projects, including how he found it, how he was able to branch out and become a spoken word poet and win a Grammy.
Yes, I think sadly some people have come to know his career after Cosby. I was well aware of him as a director doing some really interesting projects, so I kept up with him that way. But to recognize that he was the role model that so many people wanted him to be, and he just was, and he accepted that and wanted to be that.
And I think that now people are going to go back and try to find these episodes and try to really look at the Cosby Show again, because it really was amazing. I mean, it was really groundbreaking. Great. It was a groundbreaking show for all of them, for all of us.
As Ozzy does, he interrupts. Well, another major loss this week, as you're hearing here, the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, the man of Black Sabbath lore, reality TV fame, and who also had a standout solo career as a metal icon. He died at 76, and I think this came as a shock to so many people, because he had just had this farewell concert in Birmingham, England, of course, where he grew up, and a lot of people saw the presence that he had on that stage, the performance he was able to give, and were very shocked, even though he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, to see him die at this age. But what an extraordinary career. We have some darker moments to talk about, but maybe we'll start with just what he was able to carve out. And that's from coming from a very working class background and trying out being a burglar and other odd jobs, until he figured out really that he was going to be theatrical about what he was doing, because he created this persona of this very dark, gothic person, somebody who would kind of terrify people. And at a time when music wasn't going in this direction of heavy metal, he certainly brought it there. And of course, the rest is history.
Well, I think he became symbolic of heavy metal. If people didn't know anything else about it, they knew his name. This is not my genre at all. And frankly, I learned more about him after his wife was on the talk.
Oh, that's right.
As a person.
Right.
But I am well aware of the impact that his band and he had on music and on that genre specifically. I mean, he just, for a lot of people, set the standard. I couldn't tell you any of the songs that everybody else knows because I don't know them, but I know that there are some that are iconic that people feel like if you don't know them, then you don't really know you don't really know heavy metal. So his impact will go on because of course of what happened of how he made his way in music. But he was very odd, as we can
I mean,
talk about later.
I think it's so interesting because he got fired from Black Sabbath, right? in like 1979 or something like that, and went on to have this incredible solo career. And this is someone, I think about it like Madonna, who just like reinvents herself like every 7 years all of a sudden. But he did that. He had the ability to do that. He left that, became a solo career. And then some people only know him from the show, from the television, right? From the MTV reality show with the Osbournes. And I think that was such a great opportunity for him to show the other side of who he was, with this like goofy dad and a husband, and he loved his family so much.
Well, it was so bizarre if you think about it, because here he spent decades cultivating this career of this man who's going to bite the head off a dove and bite the head off a bat. These are the things we don't like, because we all love animals here.
Right.
And dressing in the dark, the dark clothes, and having the dark hair and the dark makeup, and then this heavy metal sound. And then he allows us into his home decades later. We find this. Well, let's play a little bit from the Osbournes, the hit MTV reality show from the early 2000s that pioneered the genre. This is well before the Kardashians, mind you. Here's Ozzy Osbourne struggling to work. I remember this so vividly, to work a TV remote and asking his son Jack for help.
Jack! Can you get this television to work? I'm a very simple man. You gotta have like computer knowledge to turn the TV on and off. Jack! Thing. Why can't I get a normal TV, man? I pressed this one button and the shower starts. I'm going, what is this? Where am I, man? Space age. And the nightmare continues. Nightmare in Beverly Hills.
So, of course, all of this is a little bit theatrical, but he created one theatrical persona, and then he really created another one.
Yes.
I'm sure this was somewhat like what life was like. I know that they had editing control, so we're only seeing what the Osbournes wanted us to see. But this was a wildly different character, and it gave him and his whole family new careers. Sharon Osbourne, of course, went on to a talk show host career, and it brought them to an entirely different level.
Yeah. And also the daughter, she
Kelly.
ended up on Fashion Police.
That's right.
Yes.
And the son is a director. I think directed a documentary that he did of his in like 2008 or something like that.
That's correct.
I mean, I think what's really interesting too is that that concert was grossed like $190 million.
The final one.
The final concert that he just did, the Back to the Beginning concert. And all of that money went to charities, Parkinson's disease, Birmingham Children's Hospital, and the Acorn Children's Hospital as well in England. So I think he knew this. He knew that he had his last days were coming. And to be that generous, to do this concert and to support these charities that he really was really close to. But the story about the bat is apparently he thought it was a rubber bat.
Oh!
And it was not.
But later he also did bit the head off a dove, and he did some other very unkind things to animals and people. He had assault allegations against him too. This huge loss.
He still was this cultural icon, right, for heavy metal.
Absolutely. Well, now we move on, of course, to what we learned yesterday, and we'll enter Hulkamania for this one.
At the end of WrestleMania 5, I will be the World Wrestling Federation champion. And what you gonna do, Macho Man, when the whole world full of Hulkamaniacs destroy you?
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So we don't usually like to have a whole segment about that, but we did really lose 3 people who had major different cultural impacts. So I go back to myself being a kid again and watching WrestleMania. I love this. I think it was on Saturday mornings, and there was this whole narrative. You had the good and you had evil, and Hulk Hogan, of course, was the epitome of goodness in the World Wrestling Federation, as it was known then. And then you had your bad characters. And then when eventually he teamed up against Andre the Giant. This was epic. And I remember being a kid thinking this was all for real. It was a shock to me when I began to have this understanding that, oh, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily for real. This is all planned out, although a real toll on their bodies, because he had about 25 surgeries over the last 10 years, he said. He died yesterday, or at least it was reported yesterday, death of cardiac arrest. But he was somebody who just created this also, we stick with the word fandom today, in creating this narrative around wrestling and who it could represent, but also parlayed that into television and movies.
I think when he realized that he had the personality that he did and was able to really build that in a way that even the whole wrestling personality thing, it rests on personality in general, but he was head and shoulders above in the way that he presented himself. I mean, I watched him too, and I kept thinking, I thought it was real too, but I kept thinking to myself, wow, this guy he was magnetic to watch him in the ring. And then afterwards, in his various commentaries here and there, until he made some other commentary that I didn't care for. Yeah, but I'm just saying that the whole, I think for people who didn't either grow up with him or follow his career for a while, it's almost impossible to talk about how magnetic he was on the screen and in capturing people in those live performances.
No, I think you're right, because there are a ton of people that are doing WWE that are doing this. There's only a few that actually punch above that and become these big celebrities. Andre The Rock was one of them as well, and obviously him. But yes, I mean, he did have a little checkered past. He was, kicked out of the Hall of Fame and then brought back in for racist slurs. He did do he had said some things, but he actually, that was a celebrity website gawker, and then he ended up winning this huge, lawsuit.
Well, we should talk people through that there was a sex tape that was leaked, and adjacent to that was the revelation of his use of the N-word, which he didn't necessarily call back completely, and there were other wrestlers at that time who wanted to have none of it, and so even up until very recently, he was booed when he appeared in January of this year trying to introduce a beer.
Yes,
exactly. But he became very wealthy out of that Gawker lawsuit.
He did.
I think you should make clear too. You said sex tape. That was he having sex with someone else's wife.
Oh, that's right. It's a little bit like Coldplay.
So we're going back to Coldplay days.
Yeah.
I mean, but what's interesting about that lawsuit too is that Peter Thiel, who is the billionaire co-founder of PayPal, is the one who was backing him and supporting him and helping him through that lawsuit. So I think that's just very interesting.
Well,
but I also think the interesting part of him being the Hulk is that I guess he was on a talk show and Lou Ferrigno was there, and Lou Ferrigno was talking about like, you're the Hulk, and he's like, well, hey, you're bigger than Lou Ferrigno, and he's like, well, I'm the original Hulk. And so that's where Hulkmania came in. That's where he was like the Hulk, because it was true. He was this massive, massive person who took on, like you say, Callie, this incredible persona for this.
Well, yeah, and for a long time had control over his career, because you have to know that he also intersected with The Rock at one point.
Yes.
And we know what happened to Dwayne Johnson about how he figured out it was he made a very savvy move to leave wrestling. People were kind of shocked about that, and then move into film. And of course now people wonder about the political career that he's going to have.
Right.
But it took very shrewd people to figure out how they were not going to just destroy their bodies in this process, and how they could make wrestling something more.
And he did this too as well. I mean, for Hulk Hogan, he was in a number of films as well. Right?
Rocky.
So Rocky, of course, and Rocky. So
well, we don't really know the cumulative toll on his body, because 71 is relatively young.
Yes.
And for somebody whose whole physicality was a part of his careers, so we have to assume he was in pretty good shape still.
Right. Exactly. And he had just started a whole nother wrestling federation kind of thing, an American Federation project. But I think one very interesting fact is that in his heyday, he was the most requested celebrity for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, he was
so
in his heyday.
How cool would that be to have
Hulk
Hogan
walk
show up in your high school cafeteria or
your hospital room or something?
Anything like that. Well, just in time, at least as it's pouring rain here at the Boston Public Library, we have a little thunder, which means it's time for our lightning round. Lisa, what's the story that struck you this?
I'm sure everyone has heard that the new Tesla Diner opened on July 21st in Hollywood, Los Angeles. It's a retro futuristic restaurant and electric vehicle charging hub. So it is on Route 66, which is also appropriate. It has 80 supercharge stations, so if you have a Tesla, you're all set. It has curved booths, metallic windows, neon lights. It's got comfort food. It's got smash burgers. It's got Cybertruck-shaped boxes. It's got a robot that gives you popcorn. It is part of Tesla's wanting to do a lifestyle brand. So he's trying to figure out ways, and he's planning on opening up some more of these supercharged diners, maybe to sort of help with the low sale of Teslas that are happening globally. Now you can go to the diner instead of buy a Tesla, buy a burger instead.
Looks kind of interesting. Some interesting set design here.
And there's no tipping required here.
It looks ugly, I have to say.
Yeah. Callie's definitely not buying into it. Callie, what's your headline this week?
Well, 3 years ago, Ralph Lauren collaborated with Spelman and Morehouse colleges, they're historically black colleges and universities, to do some fashion work. And now they've come out with this capsule collection. It's limited edition, honoring Oak Bluffs. Oh. And so it's available globally now. They just premiered it this week, Thursday. And some people have described it like a cultural richness being displayed of a black nautical town. And it was designed in collaboration with Morehouse and Spelman alumni who work on Lauren's creative team. So I've seen the collection. It's beautiful how they've done it. And there's only one sweater that I might be interested in. But these are designer prices, just for everybody to remember. But, very interesting.
It's very interesting.
It's a very splashy campaign with people all on the lawn and standing around beautifully.
Did they do the campaign on the vineyard?
Yeah.
And the ink
Yeah,
roll?
yeah, they're all around. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Check it out.
And is it out yet? Are people running around
Thursday.
the vineyard wearing
Yeah,
it?
no, you could just begin to order it on Thursday.
Okay.
So I bet you they're going to be almost sold out. It's limited edition, as I said.
They're probably going to have a little store on the beach.
Yeah.
Very sweet. Ralph Lauren is very good at marketing, as we know. Well, mine is actually a return to something Callie brought to our attention, and we talked about on the show about, 6 weeks ago or so.
At least.
Apparently not everybody was listening to the Culture Show. If they were, they would have ran out and bought their Labubus.
Right.
Because we were talking about this Labubu craze, which has now just ballooned even more. So if perhaps you missed our conversation about Labubus, they're these, people like to describe them as vicious little creatures that are hanging off of purses, like Birkin bags or backpacks or anything else. And they're all inspired by this artist who created a series called The Monsters based on Nordic fairy tales. So they have kind of big ears and big eyes and big teeth, which makes them a little bit menacing.
Weird hair.
And weird hair.
It's like Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes, exactly. They look exactly like that. And you can buy a blind box so that you don't know which Labubu you're going to get. But they're being sold now for so much money. And now there are life-size boo-boos. One just sold for $170,000.
Oh my God.
And let's just hope the buyer didn't buy a lafufu. What's a lafufu?
What
you
is?
might ask?
Yes, we're asking.
That is the fraudulent version of a labubu. It's so big that they now have their knockoffs.
Of course they do.
The lafufu. Yeah. Do either of you have a labubu?
I always miss the trend. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now I can't buy
So you
one.
weren't listening either.
I think even at that point, it would have
I think
too
you're
late.
right. Yeah.
It was last year while they were manufacturing them that I should have
right
bought
across the street in the Lennox Hotel, I was in the elevator and I looked down at the little girl and I said, "That's a Labubu." And the father said, "What is this that costs so much money?"
But look, she got it.
Yeah, she was very excited.
Some parent went all the way to Japan or wherever to buy one for their child. I mean, this is big.
Yeah.
Hold on to them because in 30, 40, 50 years,
they'll be worth as much as a Beanie Baby.
or a Birkin bag. A Birkin bag. I was thinking more Birkin bag.
I'm thinking more Beanie Baby. I think that's the trend for this one. All right, well, that's all for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in Monday when we'll talk to one of the creators who's brought the immersive Moonwalkers exhibition to Boston. Plus, Grammy-winning soprano Jane Eagan joins us without her filter, as always, for her take on the Republican push to rename the Kennedy Center Opera House after Melania Trump. And a new Old North Church archaeology project reveals what was all the rage for kids 300 years ago. Callie, before we go, what's coming up on Under the Radar?
We're doing our environmental roundtable, looking at some of the chilling events that have happened that we all know about, but also primary one is that the EPA's research arm has just been disbanded. So that's a big one. So.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks today to our engineer, Michaela, the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Also, thanks to the Lennox Hotel and the Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you to everyone who came down here to the library today. Even if you came in to get out of the rain, we love seeing you. Thanks for being here. I'm Jared Bowen. Take your Labubu out for a stroll and have an art-filled weekend. Have a great day.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library!
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.